Welcome to the Foul Play YouTube channel, Reading with the Crew edition.
Thank you so much, Alice. And welcome, everyone. Welcome to my fellow panel members and welcome everyone in chat. So great that you're here. It's been a while. We've had a couple of weeks off, but it's great to be back with the Reading with the Crew podcast. And at the moment, we're on actually part 14, which is awesome. And this is a project that both Neville and I have been doing. And everyone from Foul Play, want to thank you guys for your great support with the Reading with the Crew and also Open Mic and Crime Theory Exchange. It's been really, really great. And I think Jack61, correct me if I'm wrong, but our subscriber numbers have steadily increased, which is a good sign. So I think that we're doing something right here and it's fantastic. We hope that all of you guys have enjoyed the Reading with the Crew series. As you know, it's chapters. Neville and I, what we're doing is that we're reading specific chapters and presenting specific chapters from John Ferak's book, not Reading with the Crew, but The Wrecking Crew. And what we've done is we've based the chapters essentially around Kathleen Zellner's filing. And as you know, Kathleen Zellner, a couple of months ago now, has recently put in a filing where she's named Bobby Dassey as a primary Denny suspect. And also there are Brady violations as well. So what Neville and I have done is we've looked at specific chapters really pertaining to Kathleen Zellner's filing, and they really have been very, very interesting. Today we're going to change tact a little bit. We're going to be looking at a brand new chapter today, guys, entitled, it's chapter 5, if you're following it from the book, and it's entitled Skinny. And I'll tell you what, it's a very, very interesting chapter. Well, first of all, guys, everyone here, Neville, myself, everyone on the panel, would like to thank every one of you guys in chat for your constant support and feedback. What we try and do is we look at your feedback and try and answer all your questions. Please, if you have any comments, write them down in chat, and Alice, I don't recall, and others will be checking chat for your questions, and we'll try and answer them during the chat, during the podcast. And guys, if you haven't checked out, please make sure you check out the latest podcast, the latest Open Mic podcast that Jack61 has been hosting on the Colburn versus Netflix. And I'll tell you what, it's an absolute mind bender, right, Jack61? We have to thank Cherie for her tireless hard work in getting the documents for us, and Jack61 for breaking it down and presenting the material. And I, for one, have found them very, very fascinating indeed. And I'll tell you what, really at the heart of all this, to me, is censorship, right? The potential impact, and I'm sure Jack61 will talk about it in a second, the impact on all of us is huge. The ability for filmmakers to make documentaries, the ability for teams like Foul Play and other YouTubers to really have commentary and give opinions on things, all of that potentially is threatened by this lawsuit. Trust me, if Andrew Colburn is successful, it will have a domino effect, right? And I thank Jack61 and his remarkable group to put forward all the podcast material, because it's complex. Jack61, would you like to have a couple of quick words about that podcast series so far, the Open Mics?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'd like to say hello to first to the panel and everyone out in live chat. But yeah, it's been really crazy. I mean, you think about really where we really got deep into this case, because prior to 8 months ago, 9 months ago, here we are in December. Yeah, probably February, March timeframe, things really began to get interesting with that case. And then obviously there was just a ton of shit that got revealed over the next 4 or 5 months in the filings. And then, but yeah, it does come down to really, to me, censorship. That I think you nailed it several months ago. We were going through, because they're just complaining about, they're getting really minute and really cherry picking and bitching about music. They're bitching about voiceovers. It's just, it's so dumb to me that I just don't see how Ludwig can let it continue to go forward as a lawsuit and him not declare and grant summary judgment for Netflix and Chrome Media. Maybe he won't. I don't know. Maybe there's something in the law that, I don't see. But Cherie's here. She's been around, and I'm sure she's at least some well versed in some of this stuff. And I don't know of anyone personally that. Well, I mean, you talk to a guilter, then of course they believe, oh yeah, he's going to move forward. And
correct.
But if it does and it goes to a jury, I mean, you just never know what a jury is going to do. And they look at a big company like Netflix and like, screw you. Yeah, we're going to give this guy some money. And he comes back and there's a judgment. It's like, it would severely damage creators like us, thousands of other creators on YouTube, documentarians. It's a domino effect that will be, I think, really pretty terrible. Because if you're getting sued, you're scared of getting sued, right?
Correct. And then you have to think whether there's going to be retrospective civil suit cases of documentaries done 10, 20 years ago.
That's right.
It'll never stop. So it really is, Jack 61, very, very important decision that the judge has got to make. And I tell you what, one of the big issues with Colburn, as you know, is that he's just had a shotgun effect. He can't actually nail specifically what Netflix has done wrong to him.
No.
So he's just basically aiming for anything. It's a very dangerous approach.
Even pulling in, other people and naming in his Second Amendment complaint things that had nothing to do with him at all. They were pointed to Link, they were pointed to Peterson, had nothing to do with him. We've got two more documents to get through tomorrow, and we'll be, well, at least as far as what's filed, what's been filed and Cherie's gotten us. So we're going to finish it up tomorrow, but yeah, it should be fun.
Fantastic. Well, look, guys, again, I just want to emphasize right at the start that these are John Ferak's words. We're reading from his book and his chapter. They don't necessarily reflect our ideas. Now, trust me, everyone on Foul Play is different. We believe in principle of the innocence of both Stephen and Brendan Dassey. We're here to find out the truth, no matter where the chips may lay, right? If the strong evidence points to Stephen and Brendan as being guilty, so be it. But we have a lot of doubt. And that's why we're doing these podcasts, guys, for you. And we really do appreciate the feedback that you give us. Now, just a couple of issues, or just a couple of things. Please be respectful to each other. And also, if any family member comes into our chat, I know that a lot of people get heated, etc., and that's fine. But please show your respect. I know that Barb sometimes comes into our chat, and that's awesome. Right? To get a family member who was there, who went through it in real time to come to our chat, right? And we're honored for her presence, and please be respectful, okay? The last thing we want to do is for Barb never to come back, etc., because if you notice, a lot of these chapters are about her family, okay? And they're tough, and none of us, including you guys in chat, I'm sure, want others to talk about you and your family, right? But because this is such a huge case, right? Think about it. Her brother's in prison for life. Her son is in prison for life, charged with the most vicious attack on Teresa Halbach, which is completely insane when you think about it. So that's why we need to get to the bottom of things. So please, guys, show your respect. All right, guys. Well,
Doc, can I add one thing? And this is about, if there's guilters that come into our chat, that's fine. We're hey, we're following the same trail of evidence you guys follow, and ladies. With that being said, if you want to come in and participate, that's fantastic. But please be civil, because if you're not going to be civil, one of the mods is going to show you out the door, and we don't want that. That's not why we're here. We want a conversation. If you got something that you want to talk about, so yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to add that in. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack61. And Neverly, did you have a quick comment?
Yeah, in lieu of what the two of you just reminded everybody, also a friendly reminder is to stay on topic. So if you can, that really, really helps. Otherwise, the chat goes into a different direction and we're like talking to a wall. We want everybody's participation, questions, so we can, analyze this chapter and move on to something else.
Correct. So guys, thank you so much. And if you like what we do, please subscribe. That really says a lot to get your confidence. Please subscribe. Give us a thumbs up if you enjoy our podcast. And I couldn't believe it, Jack61 and team. We've got over 2,600 videos. I didn't even realize we had that many. But quite clearly, the Foul Play team has worked very, very hard and tirelessly for free over a long period of time. And we've generated a lot of great content if you're interested in these two cases and other cases as well. Plus, we have a very extensive Discord channel. Okay, at the moment, it can be a little bit quiet because we're all waiting for the state to give a response and for Zona as well. But I'm sure you'll always find somebody in chat to discuss any of your theories, right? Go your hardest. And we also have a very extensive website. And on that website, we have a huge number of documents and videos. We have Euriza's 3D interactive map, which is amazing. We've got DCI documents, phone calls, you name it. It's all there. So hopefully it's a one-stop shop. It's very popular, that website, right, Jack61? A lot of people go to it. Guilters, truthers, you name it. It's there for you, right? Do it as you will. Gather the documents, go through it, form your own opinions. That's the most important things. And guys, we like to thank all of you, all of the supporters, our super mods, our mods, and please also visit the merch store if you're interested in something. So guys, what we'll do, we'll introduce you all to the panel, especially for the new members who've just started. We'll just go quickly around and then we'll start the chapter. First, I'd like to introduce Jack61. Welcome, Jack61.
Hey, thanks, Doc, and really good kickoff. Covered a lot of things there. Just wanted to say, hello to everyone out in the live chat and the panel, and looking forward to Skinny. This should be fun. It should be interesting.
Very interesting.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Jack61. Next, we have Neverly. Welcome, Neverly.
Thank you, Dr. Silkman. Welcome yourself. And hello, everybody on the panel and in the chat. Happy to be here, and I'm ready.
Fantastic. Thank you, Neverly. Next, we have Alice. Alice, how are things?
Hi, everyone on panel. Great to be here. Hi, everyone in chat. Fantastic to see you all back with us. I know we've had a couple this week, so it's always fantastic to see you all back with us. And just another wee quick disclaimer as well, Doc, is that if your ears are easily offended, you might not want to listen, because we can use cursey words, and I will hold my hand up and say I am the worst one for using cursey words, but it is just because I get so passionate about this case and everything that we're reading and everything like that. So just another wee disclaimer is you will probably hear lots of cursey words.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Alice. Yes, we do get heated up and passionate, which is fantastic. Okay, which is fantastic. And finally, we have I don't recall.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Reading with the Crew. Looking forward to it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I don't recall. All right, guys. Well, look, I'd like to welcome, who have we got in chat? We've got TTM Fangirl. We've got TJ Anderson. We've got Gloria. We've got Master Cedar. Welcome. We've got Anthony D. We've got Kansas Foxley. We've got Clive and some of your jokes on the open mic. We need to have a discussion. Clive, we've got JD. Who else we got? We've got Carol. Welcome, Carol. We've got Case 10. We've got Supermod. Catnit, great to see you here. We've got Pete Moss. Welcome so much. Who else we got? Have I missed anybody? Oh, we've got Iced Coffee. We've got Sher. I think I said we've got JD.
Mary B.
Mary B, welcome. Great to see you here. And also, please tell us, we've got Case 10. Also, tell us if this is the first time to our foul play chat. Tell us where you're from, and welcome so much. We really appreciate it. All right, guys. If I've missed anybody out, I do apologize.
TJ Anderson.
TJ Anderson, he's here. So, guys, let's make a start. So, we're starting a new chapter, chapter 5, entitled Guinea. Now, before we start, I want to say we're not accusing anybody of doing anything. That's very important. We're not pointing a finger at anybody. We're discussing the chapters as they have been written. Jack 61.
Oh, sorry, Doc. I was just going to say it'll take me a second to get it pulled up, but you just tell me when you're ready, and I'll make my way.
Yeah. We're ready to go. Neville, you almost ready to start reading?
I'm ready. Yeah.
Yep. Awesome. So, okay. Mary B's from Norway. Welcome. Great to see you here. Let's hope you enjoy your stay. Fantastic. All right, guys. So what we're doing, we'll just wait for Jack 61 for his very first slide. And again, I thought I knew a lot about this topic, but I'll tell you what, we're always learning new stuff. That is for sure. So we'll just wait for the very first slide to come up.
Okay, it's going to pop in there.
We got Graham Moss as well. Welcome, Graham. Okay, Neville, let's go for it.
All right. Chapter 5, Kinney. On the day after Avery's arrest in Manitowoc for Teresa's killing, a strange cryptic letter made it 30 miles north. The Green Bay post office pulled a piece of mail off their conveyor and reported it to Green Bay authorities. That piece of mail consisted of a letter without any envelope. It was folded in thirds. There was no stamp attached. The note, upon inspection, revealed that the writer indicated a body was burned up in the aluminum smelter at 3 a.m. on Friday morning. The note was signed Sikiki, S-I-K-I-K-E-Y. The note was written in blue ink and had both printing and cursive writing in the body of the note.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot to unpack. But here's the interesting thing, guys. Remember that Stephen Avery was arrested on November the 9th, 2005. Now, he was arrested for felon in possession of a weapon.
A weapon.
Right? Possession of a weapon. He wasn't arrested for the murder of Teresa Halbach. But very interestingly, this note, as Neville just read out, the Sikiki note, happened to be found one day after Stephen got arrested. Right? Now, what Neville said is very important. There was no stamp. There was no envelope. It was just a note, and it was folded in thirds. But what was on that note was incredibly important.
Incredibly.
Okay, incredibly important. Neville.
Because at that time, did we know that we just knew that Teresa disappeared? We didn't know anything else.
They found
meat and the matter.
Correct. They found remains in Stephen Avery's burn pit, but there was no DNA done to determine those cremains were of Teresa Horbach's, right? The DNA analysis hasn't been done. And Cherie Cohane didn't know whose blood was in the RAV4. So all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this cryptic note appears one day after Stephen gets arrested. Right? So keep that in mind, the timing of this event. Jack 61, do you have a comment?
Just a brief one, and I think we can all agree. Those of us that have been around this, the Sikiki spelling has been taken apart, frontwards, backwards, English language, every language under the sun. We've looked at different companies, different people, and honestly, I don't think we've ever really nailed what this is, but I just wanted to throw that out there. Not saying it's not been, somebody's not gotten it and we don't know for sure, but.
There was a rumor or whispers that it came from Hmong people, Hmong, Hmoang, which are Cambodian immigrants. They're located in that area. They're like factory workers and whatnot, but that's neither here nor there. Then they deciphered it in a way that they said, that it's not Sikiki, but that it's a 5I key, something like that. So to this day, we don't know 100%.
Yes, correct. But don't worry, we'll analyze the Sikiki note after. Are you ready, Avery, to continue?
Yes. Indeed, the note was bizarre and baffling. One thing was certain. It was not Avery's handwriting. Was it from a crackpot, or perhaps somebody with inside knowledge of Teresa's murder? The police were never able to decipher the letter's origin. Actually, they chose to downplay its relevance.
Remember that point. That point. That's very, very important. And I think Jack 61 and team members, we see this, and people in chat, we see this often, right? The investigators, if they find something that they're not happy with, they tend to do one thing with it, right, guys? And that is ignore it or downplay it. Right, Jack 61?
Yeah, I mean, anything that can cast any kind of doubt on what they're trying to present to the public or in the jury and so forth, absolutely, they fucking buried it.
Correct.
Well, that's the advantage of the police and the district attorneys working together. They're the first ones. They're actually the ones that authorize the warrants. They're the first one to get the evidence, and then they decide what they're going to use, if they have a strong case or not. And also, as we read many weeks ago in this book, Ferak said, good luck, unless you have pretty much an informant on the district attorney side, the defense has slim chances of getting something that's exculpatory. Otherwise, they wouldn't prosecute.
Correct. That's a very good point. That's a very good point. So, guys, keep in mind, so far, this note comes out of nowhere, and it's found, it's given to the detectives, and the detectives, I think you'll see, they weren't interested in the Sikiki note. And Avery, would you like to continue reading?
Sure. Actually, they chose to downplay its relevance. After all, if the letter pointed at somebody else instead of Avery, that would have posed a public relations nightmare of epic proportions for Manitowoc and Calumet counties, as well as the Wisconsin Department of Justice. These agencies wanted Avery locked up and gone. They were tired of him being the public crusader for criminal justice reform in Wisconsin. None of the bad and incompetent cops of Wisconsin wanted anything to change. They wanted to maintain status quo, and Avery's constant appearance in the press only reminded the public at large about the weaknesses and flaws in Wisconsin's fractured judicial system. Wow.
Okay. So, guys, especially those who are new to this particular case, and Jack 61 will back me up, and everybody else on the panel. At the same time, before Teresa was discovered being brutally murdered, Stephen Avery had a civil suit against two guys, and we'll meet them in particular, and also the MTSO. That civil suit was for $36 million because, as you know, Stephen was wrongfully accused and imprisoned for the brutal sexual assault on Penny Bernstein. And it was discovered that it wasn't Stephen Avery who had sexually assaulted Penny Bernstein. It was actually Gregory Allen. And Stephen Avery was exonerated by none other than Cherie Colhane, doing DNA analysis from a pubic hair. And that pubic hair belonged to Gregory Allen, not Stephen Avery. So this was a sheer shock and embarrassment for people like Kacerik, Vogel, the MTSO, and the whole judicial system. So it was going to be a shit show of monumental proportions for the state. And what is disgusting, and Jack 61, you can say a couple of words if you like, Peg Lockenschlader, the Attorney General, whitewashed the entire report and found no one was to blame for what happened to Stephen Avery. No one was at fault. Jack 61.
That's right. That's exactly what she did. And to add to this whole, and I thought about this even more as we discussed, because we made the point of talking about the depositions, and in May of 2005, you think about these people in authority, and their job is to protect the state. Well, I say their job, and that's to me, a reasonable person. If somebody in the state has done something wrong, a state authority with intent, then these higher people of authority need to correct it, and they didn't. They took extra steps. They doubled down, tripled down. So in May 2005, when the depositions began for the civil suit, and it was found out that this cold case hit came out on Gregory Allen, I could bet you could hear a pin drop in Lockenschlager in her office. I bet you could, because they knew if that information got out, Doc, it would blow that shit up. It would have been a nightmare that they could never have survived.
Correct. And it would have, you must admit, Jack 61, it would have looked very embarrassing for the Attorney General.
Terrible.
Right?
Terrible.
Her entire office would have been under siege. Now, if you've ever seen videos with Peg Lockenschlader talking to reporters and other journalists, she is the epitome of a political animal. And by that I mean she knows the politics, she knows everyone in the right positions, she knows the political nature of everything. This, Stephen Avery, would have been an incredible embarrassment to her and her department, right? Shocking. And what is remarkable here, Jack 61?
I was just going to add, the photos up of Kacerik and Vogel, if it had been found out, and just any time in 2005 prior to the end of October, that Gregory Allen had been linked to another to this cold case and this brutal attack, it would have rolled right back to Vogel and Kacerik, because they alibied this guy and went after Avery.
Correct.
It would have destroyed any credibility in that civil suit. And I don't know. I think we all agree Avery wouldn't have walked away with $36 million, but certainly probably anywhere from, I don't know, $3 to $8 million, maybe $9 million. I don't know. I think they would have quickly tried to settle that damn case, though.
100% correct. 100% correct. And as you can see on the photograph, the picture that Jack 61 has just got up on screen, you're not going to believe this. You are not going to believe this. Stephen Avery was arrested on November the 9th, 2005. And who was meant to be giving a deposition on November the 10th? Jack 61? Any guesses?
Kacerik.
Yep. Sheriff Tom Kacerik, the number one fish who caused all this trouble for Stephen and his family and the huge problems it caused the entire Stephen's family members. Remember, it destroyed Stephen. It destroyed his marriage. It destroyed his relationship. It destroyed the salvage yard. The amount of hate and vitriol that was thrown at the salvage yard, the people of the salvage yard, was off the charts, right? Could you imagine the hatred that that family received and and the daily letters that that family received, right? And then for Stephen to be exonerated, to say, hey, it wasn't me, I was telling the truth all along, right? And then Jack 61, you back me up. This now brings in Andrew Colburn, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Colburn was the one that took the phone call in 95, 96, and nothing happened. And nothing happened. Stephen still remained in prison for a huge amount of time. He could have potentially been released. He spent, I think, an additional 8 or so years in prison for nothing at all, for no reason at all. So it's remarkable, Jack 61, that Tom Kacerik was due to go in front of Stephen Avery's attorneys, and they were brilliant. You have to admit, Jack 61.
Oh, yeah.
Glenn, they were superb. And they would have roasted Tom Kacerik, and guess who was next? Dennis Vogel. Jack 61. Yep. Dennis Vogel. So the two guys that were going to be deposed, there was no more depositions. Stephen got arrested and the depositions stopped. Jack 61, did you have a comment?
No. Well, I was just going to add that Glenn and Kelly would have absolutely destroyed Vogel and Kacerik in those depositions. Absolutely. Because they were ready. They had everything they needed. And I just think I think it's without knowing for sure, but I can only imagine in my mind when that they were notified by Minnesota authorities that they were coming after that warrant for Allen's DNA in this cold case. I can just imagine the fear that would have ran through that office, and them saying, "Hey, you got to keep this shit bottled up." This is a cold case, and this woman was brutally attacked and assaulted by Allen, and shit would have rolled right back to Kacerik and Vogel. That had to absolutely scare the hell out of them. Had to.
Correct. Make no mistake, guys. Gregory Allen is a vicious sexual predator. One of the most dangerous people you can imagine. And there was also potential evidence that he was involved in a murder when he was much younger. Right, Jack 61?
That's right. And that's right, in North Carolina. And I also wanted to add in, you mentioned that phone call, and we've had a lot of debates about that one. But there's without a doubt to me, at least part of the department knew about that call because of Cachet's actions in questioning those three detectives about this call in 1996. Correct. So they damn well knew about that call back then.
Yes, they did. And remember, Tom Bergener from the Manitowoc Police Department went to personally see Tom Kacerik and say, I think you've got the wrong guy. So put it this way, none of us can answer the question, why was Kacerik, Vogel, protecting a vicious sexual predator in Gregory Allen? And what is remarkable here, guys, one day after Stephen gets arrested, a note, the Sikiki note, appears out of nowhere in the Green Bay post office, right? Now that's remarkable. All right.
It's like,
guys,
hello, you got the wrong guy. You know what I mean? That note, that was like a definite red flag. To me, at least, that's how I see it.
Correct. Neverly. So, the big question is this. The big question is this. I'll get to you in a second, Alice. Would Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey butcher a girl, a woman, a 25-year-old woman, for no reason at all. None. Teresa Halbach never did anything to Stephen or Brendan Dassey. Would Stephen commit the most brutal murder, knowing full well that all the hard work he did with his attorneys were now going to place Kacerik and Vogel on the stand to finally face the music to what they did to him, his family, and everyone at the salvage yard? Was he going to kill Teresa Halbach in the most brutal way solely to go back to prison and let Kacerik and Vogel off the hook? Alice.
No chance. No chance. No fucking way, Doc. That man's life was stolen from him. No matter what way you look at it, no matter what the guilters want to say or anything like that, that man's life was stolen from him. And he spent it in a 6x8, if that, cell, you know what I mean? And protested his innocence all that time. All he ever wanted for anyone was an apology and somebody to take responsibility for ruining his fucking life. Because as you say, Doc, he lost his wife, he lost his kids, he lost his family, you know what I mean? All his family. I mean, even though Ma and Pa and that were still going to visit him and everything like that, he still lost time, precious time, with their family. I mean, even now, I mean, his poor mum has passed away, you know, and he never even got the chance to say goodbye to her or anything like that because he was stuck in there for something that he didn't do. You know what I mean? So there is no way in hell he was going to do something stupid like murder somebody or rob somebody or get into any trouble with the police because he knew that they would try and put him straight back in there, and there's no way he was doing any of that because he enjoyed his freedom too much. And that's what I've picked up with the whole thing and hearing Stephen talk and everything like that. You know what I mean? There's no way he wanted to go back in there. No chance. And once again, they destroyed his life. But my other question, I know as well, Doc, is even though that note says that she was a body in a smelter, surely a smelter would destroy everything. So because it's that hot, it's hot enough to melt metals, you know what I mean? So
correct.
And if that's so, then how did the bones get on Stephen's property? And whose bones are they? You know, that brings us back to that their bones were never really ever tested.
No bones have been tested, correct.
No. So
no DNA has been extracted from any bone.
Yeah, so none of us on the panel, none of us on chat, no guilters, no even the police force can definitively say that those bones that were so-called found in Stephen's burn pit actually belonged to Teresa, you know. So surely if her body was in a smelter, it would just destroy everything.
Well, correct. You're not going to have any meat. You're not going to have any fat. You're not going to have any organs. And we'll talk about it. Don't worry. Because smelters get incredibly hot, right? But the amazing thing is, I know some of you guys are going to be very critical what I'm about to say, but a piece of muscle tissue, several pieces of muscle tissues survived, right? Despite all the destruction that you saw of those bones, they were tiny bone fragments. Some muscle tissue survived, item BZ. And Cherie Cohen was able to get a 7 out of 15 match. And according to the genetics, now remember, this is a field that I did my PhD in, right? So I understand all the statistics. I've done that type of work. It's a 1 in a billion chance that it wasn't Teresa Halbach. So statistically, there's a 1 in a billion chance that that muscle tissue was not Teresa Halbach, right? And also mitochondrial DNA analysis could not exclude her, right? Because her mother, all your mitochondria come from your mother. So when they did mitochondrial DNA analysis of Karen Halbach and Teresa Halbach, like the FBI, wasn't Cherie Cohen, the FBI could not remove item BZ as belonging to Teresa Halbach.
Well,
But the question, Jack 61.
well, I mean, I think it's only fair that, you know, we have to hear it though. I mean, that's what we rely on. You know, we have to have some basis, so we have to go with that. You know, I still think that, I mean, even given that though, and you know, thinking about what Alice said, that they were sure okay with their bone giveaway in 2011, and I don't know, that speaks a lot to us, I think.
It does. It does. So the important point, and I think the point that Alice and Jack 61 are trying to make, is that the state gave away the cremains, which means that because of new DNA testing, investigators could have extracted DNA, either genomic DNA or mitochondrial DNA, from the bones and definitely 100% prove that it was Teresa Halbach, right? Personally, I do believe that's Teresa Halbach, but scientifically it was done very badly and leaves too many questions up in the air.
Yeah, I agree. I agree, Doug.
That's the problem. And
that's just my opinion. I know other people don't agree, and I'm okay with that, and I understand why.
Correct. But this is remarkable. Stephen gets arrested on November the 9th. One day after, they find the Sakiki note, right? And Neverly, would you like to continue reading? We're on page 4.
Yes,
Thanks.
yes. I just wanted to also mention something that Alice was talking about, that, you know, his life was stolen away from Stephen twice, mind you, twice. Correct. Not only that he lost his family, his marriage, his wife, his children, but those 5 children were raised without a father. And we know from psychology how impactful a father is in children's lives. And not only they didn't have a father, but the stigma of Stephen Avery, the rapist, the attempted murderer. You know what I mean? So
yes. And you have to admit, Neverly, that it doesn't look really good when police detectives on national television basically say they still don't believe that Stephen was innocent for the sexual assault on Penny Bernstein, right? Right, Jack 61. Even during the depositions, people like Jean Couchet were even questioning the evidence. And to me, that's a real worry. So even though Stephen was 100% exonerated, there's still doubt, right? The unindicted co-conspirator, right? That's what they're relying on. Oh yeah, maybe Stephen didn't do that, but he was there and he helped. That's how crazy it has now become. Neverly.
Would you like me to continue?
Yes.
Okay. As it turned out, John Dietering, the Calumet investigator who interviewed Bobby, drew the assignment to follow up on the mysterious letter. He learned, quote, "The mail that was being sorted in Green Bay comes from Manitowoc, Two Rivers, Green Bay, and the Pier." The Green Bay police officer, Fred Leitinen, advised that gloves were used to handle the piece of mail and the sticky letter would be held at Green Bay's police department, end of quote. Despite the intense statewide media feeding frenzy surrounding Avery's arrest, there had been no stories published regarding the prospect of Teresa's bones being burned.
Take note.
Then,
Take note of that. Okay. Now remember, the police didn't put it out in the media about their findings, right? So in other words, the Sakiki note preceded the findings in the media, right, guys? Right? So
Yeah.
somehow someone had either guessed or had insider knowledge.
Yes. Or a confidential informant.
Okay.
Yeah. So despite the intense statewide media feeding frenzy surrounding Avery's arrest, there have been no stories published regarding the prospects of Teresa's bones being burned. Then, 2 days after the mysterious letter, the Herald Times reporter of Manitowoc ran a front-page newspaper article explaining, quote, burned human remains key to Halbach's SUV found on Avery's land, end of quote.
Wow. Correct.
The mysterious letter writer had prophetically revealed body was burned up in aluminum smelter, 3 a.m. Friday morning. Sikiki. Once again, it said body was burnt up in aluminum smelter, 3 a.m. Friday morning. Sikiki. The odd letter was not signed with the writer's real name. Rather, it ended with the following key identifiers. Manitowoc Sheriff Avery.
Wow. Okay. So, guys, you can clearly see here what the letter says, and I'll read it out again. Body was burnt up in aluminum, that's misspelled, smelter. 3 a.m. Friday, again, another mistake, morn, Sikiki. So, guys, as you can see here, we've actually got a picture. This is the original Sakiki note that was found at the post office, right? They put it in a Ziploc bag, and you can immediately tell that there appears to be, I think, 2 different forms of writing here. And people that have analyzed the Sakiki note believe that it was written actually by 2 people, not one. So you can see that there's cursive writing and there's also printing. And whoever wrote it obviously can't spell aluminium, and they can't spell Friday, right? And if you notice, it's signed Sakiki, right? Now, trust me, and Jack 61 will back me up, same with Alice and Neverly, people have tried to decode what this letter actually means. Now, this is another remarkable thing, right? Have a look on Jack 61. If you could just scroll up a little bit, you see that little green plastic sticker. That green plastic sticker says, to be processed for prints, right? Now, you would think, right, the detectives or the investigators finding a specific note like this must be thinking, holy shit, this must be relevant, right? I mean, guys, would you agree on the panel, yes or no? Would the Sakiki note perk your interest? Is it suspicious? Yes or no? Alice?
Yes, it's very suspicious, Doc. I mean, I'm ambidextrous, but I'm dominantly right-handed. And the way that letter is written, if I was to write with my left hand, the way the smelter in that is, and the way the morn and that is, that would be how it would turn out if I was to write it with my left hand. But it would be a hell of a lot neater and better if I did it with my right hand, because I'm dominantly right-handed. So, but I split my hand open when I was younger. So, and back then in school, they made you write with your other hand. So they made me write with my left hand, so I then became ambidextrous.
Yes.
But it's not perfect, you know. So maybe the person who was trying to write this letter started writing it with their dominant hand and realised, oh no, wait a minute, maybe they'll pick up on my handwriting, and then changed to the other hand and tried to write it in a different way. But like you said, everybody has tried to decode it and debunk this letter. And I think it's going to be one of those things that we probably will never know where it came from. We'll never know who wrote it, because the investigation was that bad. Anything that would be found, they would probably just dismiss anyway, like they did the letter in the first place.
Correct, 100% correct. But just keep that little green sticker in the back of your mind, right? To be processed for prints, because there's a story on that as well, which will blow your mind. Alice, any other comments?
No, Doc, that's it.
Beautiful. I don't recall. Do you think the Sakiki note would be suspicious? I think we might get back to I don't recall. Jack 61, do you think the Sakiki note is suspicious in itself?
I do. It's definitely suspicious. I'm not going to go any further than what Alice meant. It's just got suspicion written all over it to me.
Okay. Thank you, Jack 61. Neville, what do you think? Suspicious or not?
Definitely suspicious. To me, the handwriting, not that I'm an analyst or anything like that, looks like it came from a person that's not very well educated, maybe borderline
Possibly.
illiterate. Yeah.
Possibly.
And somebody in the chat said that the word aluminum or aluminum was written as an afterthought, just like to clarify in what kind of smelter the body was burnt up in, which to me, because it's kind of, bunched up.
Yes, correct. You're right. Absolutely correct. So it probably just read, body was burnt up in smelter, 3 a.m. Friday morning. And as you can see, aluminum was squeezed in, and it's in cursive. And it's in cursive, which is very, very interesting indeed. That's a really good pickup.
Yeah. Also, Nan's Life said Friday would have to be in the November 4th. Thoughts? Exactly, because
it has to be obviously before the letter was written, which meant that it couldn't have been the 31st. It had to be, as you were saying, November the 4th. Correct.
Yeah, it's got to be after November 4th. So Friday, 3 o'clock in the morning, unless somebody, to me, it means that it was done, the letter was done after the body was burnt, if it was burnt in the aluminum smelter, because how else would you know? Unless you're the one who is planning to drop the body in the smelter and write a note like preemptively and send it out, which I think chances of that are less than if it was done afterwards.
Correct. When you think about it, what is incredibly suspicious is A, why anyone would do something like this, and B, the timing. Now, remember Neville. Remember what Robert Durst did. The note that he wrote and sent to the police.
Yes, the Beverly Hills.
Yes, that there was a body to be found, and he gave the address. So he had.
And that was the beginning of his demise.
Correct. Robert Durst had murdered his friend, the lady friend, and shot, and her body was in her house. Robert Durst wrote a note and sent it to the police. Is that correct, Neville? That said,
to the Beverly Hills police.
Cadaver.
Yes.
So when the police went to the address, they discovered the body. And lo and behold, the Sakiki note, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but it's exactly the same thing. It's alerting the authorities that, hey, a body has been burnt here in a smelter at this time. Guys, am I overreaching here, or is it very similar to what Robert Durst did?
Very similar.
Very similar.
Very similar.
Absolutely.
Right? That's exactly
and just
what.
as a reminder, when he did that, sorry, Dr. Silkman, when Robert Durst wrote a cadaver at such and such address, Beverly Hills,
Yes.
When he sent that letter, he sent it to the police department of Beverly Hills. And I guess when you send it to the police department, you don't need a stamp. That's something that I think that's a thing. I didn't know about that. And he
Correct.
misspelled Beverly. He spelled it out
Yes.
as Beverley. And
Correct.
then I think one of the sons of somebody who he dated, or even of the stepson, I think, of the lady that he killed, found a letter, and he noticed that Robert Durst, and he noticed the same misspelling of the same word, Beverly,
And you
spelled
know
with a
what?
Ley.
And you know what was even worse? Remember in the interview when he was shown both words and he couldn't remember which one he wrote? That was it. That was the clue.
That was
He
the
couldn't
moment.
remember which one he wrote. So,
Correct.
correct me
And
if
he
I'm
was
wrong,
claiming
guys.
only the killer would know. Only the
Only the
killer, only
killer,
the killer, only the killer. And when
only
they
the killer
confronted
would
him,
know.
with those two letters, one to the police station and the one that he actually wrote to Susan Berman, that was her name, the lady that he
Correct.
killed, he literally got physically sick. He started
Yes.
burping and he was going to vomit. If you guys remember that show, Jinx is the name of
Jinx.
it. We watched it,
Correct.
actually. We streamed it. And when he saw that, he knew that was it.
Yeah.
And
So
he got caught based on that.
the point I'm trying to get across is please don't dismiss the Sakiki note just yet. Alice.
Carol in chat. Hi, Carol. Nice to see you. She
Welcome.
says, how did the letter end up in Green Bay?
I don't think anyone knows. They actually found it on the conveyor where the mail is being sorted out. And remember, the Sakiki note, and we'll see the other side of it, the Sakiki note didn't have an envelope, didn't have a stamp, and it was folded in thirds, right? But so no one knows who deposited it there, whether it had come from other post offices or someone actually dumped it at the Green Bay post office. But obviously, as they were sorting out the mail, they discovered the Sakiki note on the conveyor belt and they picked it up.
It kind of tells me that, well, I can't prove it. I'll let Sheree talk, but it kind of tells me that somebody probably dumped it in just a postage pickup mailbox.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. But the thing is, guys, someone was motivated enough to write this, right? And as John Ferak said, it's either a crackpot or someone with insider knowledge. And remember, this is before they knew that Teresa Halbach had been cremated. We don't know where, right? Wasn't in Stephen Avery's burn pit, but someone either guessed it or had insider knowledge of what took place. That is scary. I don't recall.
I just, excuse me, had a question. How did it surface? Like, did the press get a hold of it before the police or the sheriff's department or whoever?
No, you won't believe who discovered the Sakiki note. Does anyone here remember who discovered the Sakiki note? Does anyone remember? It was Buting. Buting discovered the Sakiki note.
Oh my God.
In evidence. All right? And that's why I said watch out for that to be processed for prints, because that will become significant, right? You will not believe you won't believe how the state handled the Zakiki note. All right. So Jack 61, sorry, I don't recall. Do you have any more comments?
No, that was what I wanted to know.
Correct. Neverly, any more comments?
No.
All right. So Jack 61, can we have a look at the other side of the Sakiki note? So we've seen the front, and on the back, you've got, now this is a clue. Together, you've got Manitowoc Sheriff and Avery, right? Now, Alice, if you see this on a note, right, what does that tell you immediately, Alice? What's your impressions?
That they're trying to say that it's for Stephen.
100%, right? Guys, this is so diagnostic that someone has now pointed the finger not only at the Manitowoc Sheriff, i.e., make sure you read this note, but they've also put Avery's name on it. They didn't put Stephen Avery, but who's in the news at the moment, right? Stephen Avery. And what is occurring at the moment? The depositions. So now we've got the Sakiki note, and on the back, we've got Manitowoc Sheriff and Avery on the same side. And you can see on the note, guys, see how you can see the crease lines? So someone folded it in thirds. So someone looking at that, seeing Manitowoc Sheriff and Avery, would notably be very curious and pick it up. So it was meant to be found, Alice.
Yeah, definitely, Doc. Definitely. Maybe they didn't have an envelope or anything like that to put it in. They wanted it to be found. So how do you get it to the place where you want it to get without actually putting it there yourself? You put on it Manitowoc Sheriff and then Avery. Because as you say, he was in the news. This was all kicking off, everything like that. So you want it to get to the sheriff's department and you want to tell them that it's about Avery. You know, so
and
you fold it in cards, you pop it in a letterbox, and the first name that they see when they see it is Manitowoc Sheriff. So obviously the postal service has got to phone the police and be like, here mate, we've got a letter here and it's addressed to you, but it's no envelope, no nothing, or anything like that, but we think it might be important. So they're going to go and look, they're going to go and get it. You know what I mean?
Sorry, Alice, and Andy B is 100% correct. If the person had licked the stamp, that's enough to extract DNA from, right? You lick a stamp.
Wow, yeah, they had to know that.
Yep, yes. Yeah, and who do you think has got the knowledge to know that if you lick a stamp, it's like a little buccal swab and you leave your DNA on it? Who's got the knowledge of that?
Maybe people who pick up their cigarette butts after themselves?
That's a possibility, but who else would know that? Law enforcement. The police, law enforcement, and if you work in a crime lab, hello? Right?
Yeah. And Kansas falsely said maybe Ryan. He was a nurse.
Correct. So Andy B, that's a perfect thing. Think about it. They didn't put the Sakiki note. They didn't even type up the Sakiki note. They wrote it. They hand wrote it and dumped it at the post office. It had to be found immediately. Now, if they put it in an envelope and addressed it to the sheriff could have got it a week later, 2 weeks later, etc., etc. But it got immediately picked up, and they rang Manitowoc. They rang up the sheriff's department straight away to come and have a look at this note. So someone was clever enough to make sure that it was picked up and detected then and there. right? Or guys, look at what is on the cover. Manitowoc Sheriff and Avery. And yes, you're correct. Stephen's uncle, he was in the Manitowoc Sheriff's office, but I think he had retired by that stage. But make no mistake, the person who was constantly in the news was Stephen Avery. And who was just about to be deposed? The ex-Manitowoc Sheriff, Ferak.
This is so exciting.
So how unbelievably cryptic. Like, when I looked at the Sakiki note years ago, none of this entered my mind, right? But now you can see, guys, you can clearly see the connections. On the one page, on the other side, you've got the murder scenario. Make no mistake, body, burnt, smelter. On the other side, you've got Sheriff and Avery. Bang. So either it's a crackpot or someone wanted this to go further. Guys, any comments so far?
To conclude,
Yes.
whoever wrote this note seems like, appears like they had some inside knowledge. They were pointing away from Stephen Avery. They wanted to alert that they know something, that it should be investigated, right?
Well, wait. Were they pointing away from Stephen Avery? Were they? I don't think they were, guys, and I'll tell you why in a second. Keep going, Neverly.
Okay, I think that they were
Pointing away?
pointing away.
All right.
I could be
Okay.
wrong.
Okay.
I
All
think
right.
that it says Avery, that it's that regarding Avery case.
Could be. All right. Guys, shall we continue?
Yes.
Okay, let's have a look at the next picture. Now, lo and behold, yes, there was a report written in CASO. Alice, would you like to read out the report? This is on page 2. We'll just wait for Jack 61 to put it up.
I just had one comment, regarding what Never was talking about, and the reason for me, the reason I think it points away from Stephen, and I'm not saying that it entirely does, but because it says aluminum smelter.
Yeah.
And he didn't work at a smelter, and there were a few in the area. I don't know exactly how many, but there were at least a few that did smelting. So I think there's that, but there are others that are related. I'm just saying, I don't know. Anyway, let me get this next slide.
Okay.
Well, there was that smelter on the property.
Yeah.
Yes.
Don't worry, we'll talk about that. Yes. So, in other words, Neville, you're correct in a way that it's pointing away from Stephen, but it could also be pointing to Stephen, and we'll talk about it in a second.
True.
So,
True. Yeah.
So have a look at this, guys. Remember Deedring. Deedring is Mr. Everywhere Man.
Everywhere.
Deedring is the one that spoke with Bobby Dassey, and we've covered it, right? Lo and behold, Deedring was in charge of investigating the Sakiki note. Alice, would you like to read it out?
Yep, sure. On Thursday, 11/10/05 at 18:26 hours, I, Deetering, did speak with Officer Fred Latinen of the Green Bay Police Department. He advised me the Green Bay Post Office pulled a piece of mail off their conveyor belt and reported it to Green Bay authorities. He indicated the piece of mail consisted of a letter without an envelope, which was folded in thirds. He stated there was no stamp attached. He advised me the note was addressed to Manitowoc Sheriff and had Avery written on it. He indicated to me the note, upon inspection, revealed that the writer indicated a body was burned up in the aluminium smelter at 3 a.m. on Friday morning. He indicated the note was signed Sikiki. He stated the note was written in blue ink and had both printed and cursive writing in the body of the note. He indicated the mail that was being sorted in Green Bay comes from Manitowoc, Two Rivers, Green Bay, and Dupree. Latanen advised me gloves were used to handle the processed piece of mail, and the note would be held at the Green Bay Police Department, subject to our contacting them. The agency did receive a
Facsimile.
Facsimile transmission concerning this matter, a copy of which can be found incorporated into this report. Investigation continues. John Dieter, Calumet County Sheriff's Department.
Now, guys, what's incredibly suspicious about that? They wore gloves, right? So obviously whoever picked it up thought, holy shit, it's got Manitowoc Sheriff written on it and Avery. So they said that they used gloves to pick that piece of paper up. Guys, do you reckon that's true or just an embellishment? They obviously thought it was so significant that they used gloves. Alice. What do you think, Alice, about the use of the gloves?
No chance. No way did they use friggin' gloves. That's an embellishment. That's an embellishment to make it sound like protocol was followed.
Correct. Correct.
You know, like everyone else in this case, there is more embellishments than there is facts. And that is one big embellishment, so that they could make it look like they were doing things the right way.
But don't you think this is remarkable, guys? Right? Normally this will end up in the dead letter department, as in, hey, there's no address here, there's no stamp, there's no envelope, let's just put it aside and forget about it. But quite clearly, with all the things that were happening in the media, the fact that Teresa Halbach was missing, the RAV4 had been found, this was high alert material. And as soon as they picked it up, they called the authorities. So it's not like, put it this way, it's not like the Tom Sawinski phone call, right, guys? That nothing was done.
Oh, no, it was buried. That was buried. This was immediately pointed out.
100% correct, Jack 61. These guys immediately acted upon it. They didn't discard it. They didn't put it aside to say, it's probably a prank. They rang the authorities. That's how important it was. Yet with the Tom Sawinski call, it goes nowhere. Right, guys? It goes nowhere. And Tom Sawinski, if what he said is correct, said that he saw two people pushing the victim's vehicle up Avery Road and nothing was done. And yet, immediately when they found the Sikiki note, they alert the authorities. Neville, do you have a comment?
I did. I forgot what it was. Oh, yeah. Carol earlier on said that letters without a stamp are picked up immediately. So,
okay.
Yeah. So actually it makes sense because they don't want to, they either return it to the sender or they don't send it at all if you don't pay for the postage. So this,
okay.
Yeah, so it makes sense. Yeah.
Okay. And Carol makes the point, back then postal employees were trained to notice things like this. Well, isn't that interesting? And as we've been arguing, they wanted the Sikiki note to be picked up. Does everybody agree, guys? They wanted it to be noted, right? Otherwise, if it was in an envelope typed with a stamp, it would have taken maybe a week before anyone acted upon it. Jack 61.
Oh yeah, I absolutely agree. They wanted it noticed immediately. You know, it probably would have taken a couple days to to go run its route through because it's local. But even if they had gotten a couple of days, and it could have taken another day, maybe two, to reach the investigators, you just don't know. It would have taken definitely longer for sure.
Correct. 100% correct. Alice, do you have a comment?
Just that simple fact. Back then, they would have been trained to notice things differently because of the letters and things like that used to get posted with white powder and things like that into places and stuff. So they would have been trained on looking for suspicious packages and suspicious letters and things like that. And to me, that's suspicious. You know, that it's not in an envelope, it's folded 3 times with the Manitowoc Sheriff in Avery written where it could be seen. So yeah, it's definitely sus. But not only that, Maz in chat is asking, did they ever get fingerprints off the note? I can't remember. Knowing Sherry, it was inconclusive.
Don't worry, we'll cover that. This is going to blow your mind. All right. So what we'll do, we'll proceed with the next slide. Is that all right, Jack 61? All right. Jack 61, would you like to read this one out? So this is in the Manitowoc police report, sheriff's report, this note. Would you like to read it out, Jack 61?
Yep, I will. Okay. 11/7/05 at 11:45, I, Sergeant Orth, received a call from Trooper, TRPD, Trooper.
No, I think it's Two
Rivers. It is. You're correct. Yeah, Two Rivers. Yeah. Lieutenant John Reimer. Lieutenant Reimer stated that he was contacted by Redacted, who is one of his informants. Redacted apparently stated that Stephen Avery has 2 incinerators on the property in question and that investigators should check those areas. I, Sergeant Norton, made the phone call, made contact with Redacted. Redacted, I'm guessing this has said no reason to believe that anything.
Had no reason.
Yeah, had no reason to believe that anything was in incinerators. However, she felt it would be oh my God, they've already identified it as a woman now. Oh, Jesus. She felt it would be a good place to check. Redacted added that she does not feel anyone could have drove the vehicle in question onto the property in question without Charles Avery or any other Avery family member noticing. I thanked Redacted for her information and the phone call was ended. The information received from Redacted was passed on to Lieutenant Herman. Lieutenant Herman informed me that the DCI is already aware of both incinerators.
Oh my God.
Now, wait. Guys, here's the significance. It's November the 7th, right? This is Cuss Road territory, right?
Absolutely.
Time frame. Right, Jack 61.
That's right.
This is before Stephen gets arrested. This is before the cremains are found, right? Before the cremains are found. This is before the Sakiki note. And someone has mentioned incinerators. Jack 61.
Yep.
Jack 61.
So this
2 of them.
3 days before the Sikiki note was found.
Yep, correct.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we all know Doc, you can tell everybody who the CI is because we found out because of some terrible redacting on their part, and it's not anything we did. They did it, but
correct.
It's got weird shit written all over it, man.
Now, you have to admit. Now, wait a minute. Now, incinerators, they're not talking about burn barrels. They're talking about incinerators.
Right.
If someone mentions to you incinerator, what does that immediately imply to you?
burning something up.
Yeah, burn. Burn. What did the Sakiki note say, Alice?
Burned up in a. Yep, go ahead.
Burn up in a. Yep.
Burned in a smelter.
There you go.
Yeah.
So smelter, incinerator, crematorium, but not burn barrels.
Yeah.
Or burn pit. That's the important thing. Or pit. Okay, so somebody. Alice.
Sorry, Doc. Kimberly Neal in chat. She says Sikiki equals Siki is key, i.e. a sick person is key. Notice 1, double K. Who do we know with these initials? Ken Kratz. 2, who played with a key? Yep, easy.
I love conspiracy theories, but why not? Why not? Right, guys?
Exactly.
Well,
you gotta think outside the box.
Correct. Very, very good point. All right. So a confidential sorry, Jack 61, did you have a comment?
But just briefly, I mean, it's just the Siki keynote is cryptic, if nothing else, because of the timing.
Yes, 100% correct. And people on Reddit have lost their shit trying to decode the Sakiki note.
Oh my God.
I don't think anyone is close, right? They're blaming, what was it, John Wayne Edwards, the killer who recently died a few years ago. He was a vicious killer. And believe me, he's the type of person that could have committed the murder of Teresa Halbach. He's that type of vicious killer. And
no doubt.
What John Wayne Edwards used to do is set people up and then roll up at the court and watch it unfold, right? That's the type of person Wayne Edwards was. But there's only one problem. John Wayne Edwards at that time, in 2005, was actually very, very sick, old, unlikely to have done something like that. But when he was younger, that was the way he worked, right, Jack 61? He was a vicious killer.
Absolutely.
They even said at one point, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Deborah.
They even said at one point on Reddit that he actually appeared in Ma'am. Remember that?
Yes. There's a famous image in the courtroom when he's standing at it appears that's John Wayne Edwards standing in a doorway looking at the attorneys. I'm not 100% sure it's him, but correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't John Wayne Edwards from Wisconsin? Isn't he from Wisconsin?
I don't know.
You know, I think he originally was, but as you said a minute ago, Doc, he was pretty damn sick at that point. He really was.
Sick. He was very sick. And the amazing thing is that's the way he used to operate. He used to do vicious, brutal murders and then blame somebody else. And correct me if I'm wrong, guys, didn't he also write cryptic letters as well with cryptic clues?
I know think he did.
The Zodiac
I think
killer,
he did.
Obviously. Yes.
Yeah.
But
he's from Missouri.
Missouri, okay. But people lost their collective minds trying to decode the Sakiki note. I think it's very simple. Either it's a total crank, or from the killer, or from someone from law enforcement that knows what happened and is pointing a finger directly at Stephen Avery, right? Because the timing of all this, you have to admit, the timing is really weird that Stephen gets arrested one day after the Sakiki note's found, right? All right, so we've got a confidential informant. Jack 61, can we have a look at the next page, please?
Oh, yeah, give me just 1 second.
Yep. Okay, so keep that in the back of your mind. A confidential informant on the 7th informed her obviously officer, person looking after her, I think you better check the incinerators on the Avery salvage yard, right? Now, I don't recall. Are you able to read from where the red arrow is? Now, have a look. Have a look at this. This is in the CASO report, page 1041. Have a look at where the arrow is and have a look at what it says. I don't recall. Can you read that out?
Okay. January 17th, 2007, at 16:30 hours, Kim J. Ducat, 1212 Hawthorne Street, Two Rivers, Wisconsin. Ducat advised me she had called in a tip to Two Rivers Police Department the day Teresa's truck was located. She indicated she gave someone at Two Rivers Police Department the tip of looking in the incinerator. She stated she grew up with Stephen Avery and personally believes we are barking up the wrong tree. She then went on to indicate he was in prison for 18 years and she does not really know how this might have changed him. She stated she did talk to Steve's investigator about this matter.
Boom. There you go.
So we know who the confidential informant is. And Jack 61, can we have a look at the next picture? There you go. The confidential informant is Stephen's cousin who phoned up the authorities to say, you better check the two incinerators on the Avery salvage yard, and then said, you're barking up the wrong tree. Guys, help me out here. What the hell is going on? What's going on? Jack 61. I'm at a loss.
I'm not accusing anyone. I want to be clear that this is just a theory. It's speculatory, but she knows Chuck very well. Kim is Chuck's daughter, and remember all the recent stuff. I said recent.
What?
It's been in the last.
Kim is. Hold on. Kim Ducat is Chuck's daughter.
That's right.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
I didn't either.
I didn't know
And
that makes Stephen and her uncle and niece, not cousin.
I think I'm saying that right. Okay, let me back that up. It's saying cousin. There's a relationship, family relationship, and allegedly now, I want to be clear about that. Chuck attacked her when she was young.
True. I remember that story. Yeah.
Yeah, and this was pretty heavily circulated on social media. Like I said, about a year and a half ago, 2 years, I guess now at this point. And so, with that being said, is she trying to point and say, hey, there's other people on the yard you need to be looking at? There's two incinerators there. Get your head out of your ass. I don't think Stephen did it. But there's two incinerators there, and you might need to look at that. I'm just saying because of her relationship in the past of what's being claimed. And it wasn't only Kim, it was another female family member. I'm not going to say who that is. Somebody else wants to do that, they can go right ahead and do so. That was also allegedly attacked, that assaulted, that they've said no, that didn't happen. That time by Chuck, yes, exactly. They said no, that didn't happen. You guys know who I'm talking about, but I'm just saying. Again, this is speculatory. It's theory. So I just wanted to get that out there.
Well, that's completely blown my mind. Alice, do you have a comment?
Yeah, she's not Chuck's daughter. But
yeah, I stated that wrong. I stated that wrong.
Yeah, she's not Chuck's daughter. She's a cousin. But you're right about the rumor that's been going about, because she's been on somebody else's channel as well,
and Twitter.
saying, yeah, and Twitter, but she's been on somebody else's channel, and they are adamant that something happened with Chuck,
Oh
and
boy.
her. Yes,
That was revealed.
as in Essie, and she's been quite open about that. But I think that's why there's a lot of trouble in the family in that as well, because this is what's being said. But she has came out and said that herself personally on somebody else's channel. So that is the connection with her and Chuck. And yes, I agree with Jack that I think that now that we find out that she was the informant, that she was pointing it to the property, but not Stephen. So
Yes.
you can
Correct.
take that as you will, of who she could be meaning, and that's why she says in that last one that we just read, you're barking up the wrong tree when it comes to Stephen. So to
Good point.
me, that was her pointing her finger at somebody else
Oh,
on that
But
property.
at the salvage yard. But at the salvage
Yes.
yard.
salvage yard,
At the
yes.
salvage yard. Yes, definitely. She was pointing the finger at someone else on that property, and that's why she said, you need to check the smelters, but I'm telling you now, it's no Stephen. So you can take as that. And as I said, being on somebody else's channel, and she's came out and she's said all this. I think she's done ones herself on her own channel, because I think she had a channel for a while.
Yes.
But nothing's been done on that one for a while. But those things have came out, and people have just run riot with them. As we say, we don't know, because we're only hearing it from them, and you know what bad blood can be like in families, and people will say things, and you know what I mean. I'm not saying that the essay never happened between her and him. I don't know, so I can't really say aye or no for definite. But in my opinion, she was pointing to the salvage yard itself, but not Stephen.
Very
So take
interesting.
that what you will.
Yes, very interesting. So it's rather remarkable that she had the incentive to call up, obviously, her handler and tell her handler on the 7th, to check out the incinerators, the 2 incinerators. So how in the hell did she connect incineration with the investigation? This is before the cremains were found. That's huge, guys. That's huge. And remember the rumor that went around when Chuck Avery said, we burnt the bitch.
Mm-hmm.
Guys, I'm not dreaming that, am I? That's
No, you're
what
not.
was a rumor going around where he said, I think it was a phone call, I could be wrong, where he
It
said,
was a phone call.
Now wait a minute, where the hell did that come from? Who is he referring to?
You know, I don't remember I'm going to remember it wrong, and I'm going to say it wrong, and I don't want to do that, because you know how you say one thing and it snowballs into something. As I recall, this has been a while. Someone else, and I don't know who it was talking to another person, and they relayed that message that Chuck said, "Don't worry, we burnt the bitch."
Jesus.
Now that's what I recall hearing.
Yeah. But again, as Andy B pointed out, you've got all these people who are now acting like Nostradamus, right? Cuss Road was the 7th, right? And according to the state, nothing happened at Cuss Road. The cremains then get found a day later, and Kim Ducat is saying to her handler, you better check the two smelters, the two incinerators, and you're barking up the wrong tree.
That's right.
And then on the 10th, you've got the Sakiki note, which refers to a body being burnt in a smelter at a specific time. And on the other side, it's got Manitowoc Sheriff and Avery. Now, Avery, could that refer to Chuck?
Well, there's that potential, and again, if this history actually happened, and we know that other history happened, for sure, there were some definite issues there. Maybe they thought, hey, you better look at this guy because he's definitely got anger issues.
Correct. And you know what? I believe it was Kelly who, and also checked in Queso as well. You know who the number one suspect is of committing the murder of Teresa Halbach is? Who got the most hits? You know who it was?
It was Chuck.
Chuck
Avery. Chuck Avery. Right?
Yeah.
Now, I know we're not going to turn this podcast into a Chuck Avery episode, but guys, have a look. All of this could be related together, right? The Sakiki note, Kim Ducat, right? And what she said. So, guys, keep on the back of your mind that if Teresa Halbach was going to leave the Avery salvage yard, she would have had to have gone past the office. That's where Chuck Avery was.
That's right.
He was in the front office area. He could have flagged her down. He could have stopped. He could have come up with a ruse. And remember, someone was looking for Chuck. Remember? Yeah. And he was looking for about 5 minutes.
Yeah,
and he said,
he looked disheveled.
He seemed all disheveled. Wow. Bloody hell, wow. Right? So keep that in the back of your mind. Jack 61.
Yeah, just, I don't like to throw a lot of innuendo about. I know you don't either, Doc, and no one else here.
Correct.
But it comes down to what we don't know. There's clearly so much that's unreported that we don't have our hands on. So, that forcing our hand a little bit to this speculatory opinion theory. I said what I did just because of other things that we know in this other supposed these supposed events that happened years ago. Maybe she's like knowing the type of person he is, and like you need to look deeper because I just don't think Steve would do it. But got a couple of incinerators here, but you guys need to check this shit out.
I'm telling you. You look at Steve. You look at his body language. You look at the way he expresses himself. He's in total shock that he was convicted of killing Teresa. What?
Absolutely.
He's hiding nothing. He's hiding nothing. He's in total disbelief. He goes, "What? Again?" And it's scary that Kim Ducat is pointing to incinerators on the salvage yard. Well, Jack 61, can we have a look at the next picture? Well, have a look at this. There actually was an aluminium smelter, a mini one, on the salvage yard, right? Now, as you know, Steve, Chuck, Earl, even Papa Avery, they dismantle car parts, right? And they get the aluminium and other metals. And what they do, you can see it all stacked up in there. This is their aluminium smelter, right? And so what they do is they get the car parts and they throw them in the aluminium smelter and they melt it. And they get aluminium ingots, right? So basically bricks of aluminium, which they then sell on to people that use aluminium, right? So guess what? That's why I said to Neverly, is it pointing to Avery or is it pointing to somebody else? Because lo and behold, on the salvage yard, they do have an aluminium smelter, right? And I want to ask people in chat, who's ever seen that picture before? Who has not seen that picture? about the aluminium smelter. Well, lo and behold, they had one, right? And so quite clearly, after Kim Ji-kat phoned in and said, you better check the smelters, they went there, right? They actually went to check them out. So Jack 61, can we have a look at the next picture, please? So quite clearly, the aluminium smelter had a lid on top, right? So there's absolutely no doubt that if you wanted to get rid of a human body, this is the way to do it. You're not going to have anything left, right? And so if you have a look at the next picture, on the right-hand side in the middle are all the blowers, right? Now, guys, Jack 61,
What are
back
the
me up.
blowers?
The blowers is to put oxygen in, right? And there's also a propane tank attached to the smelter, right? And what the hell did Dahan say about getting rid of a body? You need a lot of oxygen. You need the vessel to be enclosed, right? So you have direct heat, and you need a lot of fuel. Well, lo and behold, they've got it. They've got it on the property. You want to get rid of a body? It's right there. They've got the blowers for oxygen to get it super hot, and they've got direct propane tank connection to the smelter. Because now I checked, I didn't know these values myself, but to melt aluminium, right, you need 660 degrees Celsius, and that's temperatures of around about 1200 degrees Fahrenheit, which means it's going to be very, very hot in order to melt aluminium. A crematorium works at between 760 to 980 degrees Celsius, or between 1400 and 1800 degrees Fahrenheit. So believe it or not, a smelter is not as hot as a professional crematorium. But I tell you what, a human body subjected to 660 degrees with direct heat, there's going to be nothing left. Guys, what do you think? That's shocking. They've got an aluminium smelter on their property.
Yeah.
I've seen these pictures before, some of them, not all. I've seen the pictures, but I didn't know, like the previous picture, I didn't know how big it was in relation to a human body. You know what I mean? We don't have anything to orient ourselves to it, but some of the pictures I did not see, and this is actually scary. I know what the report said about it and whatnot, but still very, very, very interesting. The date, the 7th of Kim Ji-kat, warning them, hey, you're barking up the wrong tree. There's smelters there. Hello. And then 3 days later, after, and after Stephen was arrested, boom, there's the Sikiki note.
Correct.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say, and if a body was dismembered, it would easily fit, right?
That's 100% correct. That's 100%. Now, guys, there's no doubt Teresa Halbach was dismembered. She was cut to pieces. So putting pieces in an aluminium smelter would be a piece of cake. There'll be no problems in order to get rid of a body in a smelter. Lo and behold, Kim Ji-kat phones the authorities to say, you better check you better check the incinerators. Lo and behold, on the property, they've got an aluminium smelter that melts aluminium, and it can get really, really hot. Now, I think Maz asked the question about the photographs. These were official investigator photographs, and I remember, because I checked the court transcripts, they went through these photographs. They actually went through the photographs, right? So, in court.
In court, yeah.
In court. So they actually went through these photographs. I read it. So they went through the photographs. The investigators were that worried that they went to check out the smelters, right? So Jack 61, can we get to the next page, please? Well, sorry to disappoint everybody, but they checked the smelter and the smelter was cold. There were no cremains. And if you have a look at the bottom of the smelter, there are even aluminium cans that are crushed, and not burnt, which meant, guys, the aluminium smelter wasn't used. It wasn't operational. They checked it.
Yeah. And Nan's
But
Live 7 said in the chat, sorry, Dr. Silkman, that
yeah,
Schneider in CC report stated that the smelter on the property wasn't working because of the EPA laws, so it wasn't regulated up to code.
correct. And you can see that there was a whole pile of aluminium not melted down. So no one had used the smelter at all, right? But isn't it interesting that Kim Ji-kat would tell her handler, hey, you better go check the incinerators. So even though they had a smelter, it wasn't used, right? But have a look at the next one, guys. If we have a look at the next picture, Jack 61.
The plastic.
Right? They even had a wood furnace on the property. So Kim Ji-kat obviously knew about the smelter and the wood furnace, right? So Jack 61, if we have a look at the next page, so the investigators definitely checked it out, right? And when they opened up the door, you could see that there was full of papers, right? Clearly, no one had used the incinerator, right? So no way was a body burnt in either the smelter or the incinerator. And Jack 61, if we look at the next page, they even emptied out the incinerator, right?
And went through the ashes.
They went through the ashes. They're looking for bones, cremains. There was nothing there, right? And the incinerator, the incinerator was used for warming, to warm some of the premises for heat, right? So I'm sorry, I got Maz excited there for a second. So what I'm saying is that here's the bizarre thing. If Stephen really wanted to get rid of a body completely, he had the means to do it. The smelter wasn't used. Yes, and the opportunity. The smelter wasn't used, and nor was the incinerator used. Right? So that's the interesting thing. So Neville, you now can say, this now points to somebody else, right, Neville?
Yes.
Correct. So, guys in the chat, I hope you appreciated that. But I hadn't even studied these pictures before. And
also,
when I saw them,
sorry.
Yes.
No, go ahead, and then I'll say it. Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying it's amazing. I've been studying this case for 4 years. I know I'm only a junior at it, but I wasn't even aware of all of this until we read the chapter of the Sakiki note. Neville.
Remember, you guys, I think it was even episode 1 of Making a Murderer, when Stephen got out of prison, when they showed that, he was bald with a super long, like ZZ top beard.
Yeah.
It was there, everybody was celebrating and stuff. And then the camera cuts to Kim Ji-kat, who said, hey, I don't think they're done with you. Be careful, right? So I think that Kim actually was looking out for Stephen and was aware of how things work with the police. And being an informant, I'm sure that she has more knowledge and experience than all of us together of what they're capable of, their incentives, of their imagination, of their speculation, and of their ways of doing things.
Correct. The question for me, guys, is why is Kim Ji-kat a confidential informant?
Maybe they busted her for something, and instead of going to prison, they enslaved her.
That happens quite. That happens quite a bit. What Everly said. You get caught with a little bit of weed or whatever, and they say, she's like, "Hey, what can I do to get make this go away?" And I say, "Well,
they pretty much own you at that point." Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah. And then you kind of have to work them until they say, okay, we've got enough. We're gonna just forget about this. You give us enough that we can just move on.
Interestingly enough, who else was a CI? Also a female, also kind of relevant to the Teresa case.
Williford, Kathy Williford.
No.
I was going to say Candy. I was going to say Candy.
Really, Candy Avery, Earl's wife.
Absolutely. There's no doubt about it. No, well, I don't know if she was considered a CI, but she definitely gave them a boatload of information, but yet was kind of really able to stay out of much of anything. She didn't testify. She's the one that really, and I believe this to this day, this is my opinion. I can't prove it. I'm not saying it's right, but it's my opinion that she is the one that put Kayla up to everything that got said, that she said that she told her counselors that then got turned over to the cops. So that brought Brendan in. Absolutely. Yes, awful.
Yep.
And she was bestie with Colburn's.
Yes, she was.
Mm-hmm. So I'm sure that they were talking about all kinds of stuff.
They were. Of course.
Yeah.
Yep. Alice, do you have a comment?
Yeah, we don't trust them, the police and that as it is, right?
Correct.
And this might just be my mind working overtime or what, but was she an actual informant? Or are they just making out that she's an informant to put more pressure and disruption in the family? Because
that's possible, but they blanked out her name in a report. Remember, Jack 61, they completely blanked out her name. And I think there was an unredacted report that Kathleen Zorner has. She's definitely a confidential informant. But
is she really though, Doc? Because look at the amount of shit that we've uncovered, right? No reports getting written or reports being written that aren't to the exact wording of other people and things like that. It could be a possibility that they've said that she was an informant, but she was just a concerned citizen and saying and phoning up with a tip. How many other tips did they get? Does that make them an informant? Do you see what I'm trying to say? Just because they say that she's an informant, or she was an informant, a CI, was she really?
Well, that's what they referred it to. I wish we can get Cat to come on and say, yeah, I was a confidential informant, or no, I wasn't. Right?
Yeah, said on in several actually documents, her name was there as a confidential informant. So this wasn't just the only one.
Right.
Well, see, to me, that would put pressure on the family and that as well. What I mean? Because they would have to watch every step. And if Stephen knew that she was an informant, he probably didn't, but so that would have caused strife in the family as well, if they were under the same impression of hating the police, which we know they were because of what happened to Stephen, especially Ma and Pa. I'm not sure about the rest of them. I think maybe the rest of them were happy that fucking Stephen was away, because then they got to rule the garage and everything like that. But think of the amount of pressure and conflict and everything like that, and that family dynamic. If the family knew she was a CI, and then could this be why she gets the problems to this day? with a family. And because when she was coming out and she was speaking for Stephen and everything like that, on the Facebook groups and things like that in the beginning, when I started, there was people calling Kim Ducat everything under the sun, you know?
Yes.
But in my opinion, she was the only one at the time that was screaming louder than everybody else about what happened to Stephen. So you can just imagine what the dynamics would have been like if the family knew
Terrible.
that she was that, you know what I mean?
Yeah. But the fact that her name appears as a confidential informant in a CASO report, I think that lends credence to the fact that she was a confidential informant, right? And the mere fact that the detectives actually checked the incinerators, they took it seriously. So, Kim Ducat is not just a random member of the public. She's a family member. She's a cousin.
Yeah.
Right, a direct cousin to Stephen Avery, who just got arrested. So, they took it seriously. Jack 61.
Yeah, just changing subject just for a brief second. Carol asked, has Kayla come forward with information? And you have to refer to Kayla's in-court testimony. She recanted, and she recanted everything. And this is another part. And she never accused Candy or anyone else of what they Fallon was accusing Brendan of. But there's other documentation where we know that the reason, because Brendan told him the reason that he had lost weight and was upset and was crying is because a girl had called him his girlfriend, which apparently he was 15, 16 years old. She broke up with him and he was upset. It broke his heart. So he was crying, and other people his other students were calling him, heavy and chunky and fat and all that. So he was trying to lose weight, but
correct.
They twisted all that shit.
The state ran with it. You're correct, Jack 61. The state grabbed it, ran with it, came up with a bullshit scenario, and it worked.
Yep.
And it worked.
And
but she did recant. But she did recant at trial, Carol.
She did, yes.
I was going to just say that. And for a teenager to claim, there's, blood in the concrete, he lost all that weight, blah, blah, whatever she said, and then to come to the freaking court and deny all of that, recant it. I want to believe that whatever she said was bullshit. And I believed Kayla. And that took some guts to say it, whether we like it or not, or have high opinion of her or not. It takes balls to basically stand up to everything that you said and recant it. And remember Fallon? He was pissed. He was pissed.
He was mad as hell.
Okay, thank you, bye.
Yep. Correct. But the disaster is this, and it's been mentioned in chat. This whole disaster occurred because of two kids, one 14 and one 16.
That's right.
Right? Kayla and Brendan, both kids. And this whole disaster ended up that Brendan Dassey now is in life in prison for something he never did. And what I discovered was Brendan was very close with Stephen. They were good friends. Brendan always was with Stephen. And maybe Brendan felt depressed by the fact that his uncle got arrested again, right? So you would, if you have your uncle and you're really close with your uncle and he gets arrested again for murder and you're thinking to yourself, oh no, not again, that would make you depressed as a young person. Right, Jack 61?
That's right. That's exactly right. Just to add a little bit more to what I, this whole thing talking about, it was Candy that went to Special Agent, DCI Agent Tom Fassbender and said, hey, there's some messages on the computer you need to check out. She brought him in. Her name is in that search warrant for the Dassey computer.
Mm-hmm. Correct. 100% correct. Alice, did you have a comment?
Yeah, just the fact when it comes with saying I agree with Everly. It took guts for Kayla and Brendan to go up onto that stand and admit that what they had said wasn't true. I mean, especially Kayla.
Yes.
You know, because she was the youngest out of them all. And I also agree with other members of the panel as well that I think that she was put up to it by somebody else.
And
Yeah.
again, wanting to do the right thing because she was smart enough to see the implications and consequences. Not maybe for Stephen and Brandon, but for herself if caught lying.
Yeah, but
you know.
not only that, Neverly. I think she started realizing what they were trying to do to Brendan, and because she told the counsellor that Brendan was upset and he was crying and that he was losing weight, not knowing it was the fact because of a girl that Brendan was upset and everything like that. She just picked up on the fact that Brendan was upset about something and he was losing weight and things like that. And it was due to, I think, if I remember right, because there's that much bloody information there, if I remember right, Brendan liked a wee lassie, and the wee lassie didn't really like Brendan as much as Brendan did her, and I think maybe called him fat or something like that. So he was trying to lose weight to impress her. He was upset because he got rejected. And you're not going to, a young boy that age, now I had a son, so I know what teenage boys are like. And he's not going to sit and tell his wee cousin, who's female, that he's been rejected by a lassie, you know. So Kayla's just picking up on him being upset. And she's went to the counsellor, or she said somebody to somebody, and they went, oh, well, you need to tell somebody. So she's went to the counsellor and she said that Brendan was upset and everything like that. And then the fucking snowball started to roll. So by the time it came to Brendan's case, now you've got to remember, she would have seen Krat's press conference and everything about what he said about Brendan. And imagine how guilty that Wayne would have felt, knowing that because what she said to a counsellor, in part, is why Brendan was sitting where he was. So yeah, you've got to, without a doubt, as much as you're disappointed or kind of blame her in a sense or whatever, you've got to give that Wayne kudos for going up on that stand, knowing that you've got somebody like fucking Ken Kratz staring at you, giving you dirty looks or whatever, and she sat there and she said that what she said wasn't true. You know, and I felt heart sorry for that wee lassie when I seen that. But I also applauded her because I think by then she realised the damage that was happening to Brendan, and
but
she
also
thought
the impact.
Yeah.
But impact on her own cousin.
Yeah.
In other words,
exactly.
the state believed Kayla.
Yep. Yep. And can you imagine how guilty that wee lassie would have felt? Maybe not a lot of guilt, but she would have felt guilty because of what she told this counsellor, and then they fuckers just ran with it and twisted it to their narrative, and she's seen all this playing out, you know what I mean? So yeah, I've got to give the lassie kudos for doing what she did, because that was
she did the right thing.
That was a brave thing that wee lassie done for her cousin, to try and help her cousin, you know. And I will always kind of defend her on that. Yes, she shouldn't have done maybe what she done, but who was also in her ear telling her to do the things that she done? You know, you've got to take that into account as well. So I will always praise Kayla for going on that stand and saying everything that they were trying to make out was a lie.
Yes, and the investigators, and Jack will back me up on this, they put a lot of pressure on Earl and on Chuck, right?
Oh,
and also
tons.
and also on Bobby. So it's basically, hey, You're either on our side
Oh,
or
yeah,
you're on Stephen's side, right? And if you're on Stephen's side, you're going down too. Jack 61.
And one other that they were on more than probably, well, definitely any family member was Jody.
Jody Stokowski.
God almighty.
Correct. 100% correct. And just before we continue the podcast, don't forget, Kim Skalinski told Brendan Dassey, you saw body parts. You saw a body in that fire, didn't you, Brendan? Right? Because he knew. Skolinski knew on November the 10th, he must have been there. Brendan said he helped his uncle with the fire, which meant, we found the cremains, which means that you were either a spectator or a participator. Remember, Jack 61, Skolinski. Now, as soon as Kayla starts blabbing her mouth, Skolinski's putting two and two together and saying, Fassbender, Wiegert, you better talk to that kid. He knows more than what he's telling you. And the rest is history. Boom. Jack 61.
Oh, yeah, that November 10th interview that Skolinski did, he got really harsh with Brendan, really harsh.
Very angry.
That was up in, yep, he was. I wish we had a recording of that.
Yep, he got very angry. Alice, do you have a comment?
Yeah, it's actually Cherie. She's put in the connection. Stephen and Kim are related through great grandparents, the same great grandfather and the same great grandmother.
Oh, okay.
Okay, nice. But I tell you what, it'd be if we could do it, if we can get Kinji Cat just to have a 5-minute chat, that'll solve a lot of issues, I think. Should be very interesting. But let's get back to the podcast.
Actually, can I just mention something? I want to just go back to the possible confidential informants.
Yes.
We definitely saw Kim Ducat's name, address, and date of birth on the form that comes from the police.
We did.
Yes. So that's what it says. Then I have two other people. One was kind of confirmed and one is totally speculatory. So I wanted to see what you guys think. The one that was confirmed was actually Carmen Bootwell. Her grandmother gave interviews and she said that Carmen was a confidential informant for the police. She hated actually the fact that she had to talk to them, but she got into some kind of a trouble, and instead of going to jail, she agreed or was pressured to, agree to be a confidential informant. And actually, she was so uncomfortable because the conversation that they had with Carmen Bootwell would happen in the police car somewhere away from the city, like in the cornfields or whatever. So you're in the car with one or two police officers. That's very intimidating.
Yes, it is.
As a matter of fact, her grandma accompanied her once, I believe, if I can call correctly, if somebody can confirm this or, debunk it. She went there with her, which I found very, very interesting. And we know that the timing of Carmen Bootwell's death was also very interesting, how the cremains, it took them like over a month to get back, how she was found, who was with her girlfriend. She was gay, so she had a girlfriend. I think Jessica Miller was her girlfriend, who happened to be in jail at the same time with Jody Stokowski. Right? So this is, And remember when I think it was Remiker who talked to Karen Kalbach and asked her, is there any female family members that have recently passed away?
That's
do you guys remember that?
Yes, I do.
And I found that very odd to ask. And then they confirmed that it was Teresa's, whether bones or what blood, whatever it was. Dr. Silkman, maybe you can help me out with this one, because they did the mitochondrial DNA testing, which comes only from the female side, correct?
It comes from your mother. Mitochondria, 99.99% of the mitochondria in your body are all from your mother. Correct.
But the fact that they asked Karen if there's somebody else who's related to them, to her, passed away recently, because that's not a usual fucking question.
No, but the problem with item BZ, it's not a 100% genomic DNA profile, right? Only got 7 out of 15 loci.
Yeah.
So it's not a complete profile, which means that if you had other siblings, it could be them. Hence the question. Hence the question, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's why it's disgusting, disgraceful that the MTSO, Calumet, or wherever gave back the cremains to the Horbach family when the bones should have been tested to conclusively prove, yes, this is your daughter. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
You need a 100% DNA profile done on those bones to say, there's no doubt this is your daughter. I'm sorry. Right? But the way they left it up in the air is shocking, disgusting. I've never heard of it before. Right? But now we've discussed that in another podcast where the cremains should have been preserved, the bones should have been preserved for biological testing.
And just to finish the confidential informant topic, I don't know how you guys feel about it, but on several occasions, so more than once, you know, when your gut tells you something, I'm not claiming that this is the truth. I'm not claiming that this is what I completely believe. I'm just saying what it crossed my mind, that Scott Tadich was helping the police with something. Because he had an awfully friendly relationship with them and with the Judge Fox.
Yeah, and as we'll see in this podcast, I'm not sure whether we'll complete it today, but Scott Tadich does come up. And he is a very, very compromised individual. Jack 61. Thank you, Neverly. Thank you, Neverly.
Yeah,
Jack 61.
Yeah, just to tie it together for, maybe I'm sure all the people that have been around have seen this. This is the Manitowoc County summary report. And as you can see, this is the original report we got way back in 2016 that we crowdsourced, and you can see how we got it, and it's what it says there. I just wanted to get that on screen because we've been talking about the CI position.
Yes.
And of course, we later found out that was Kim. Because of this other report.
Thank you, Jack. That's the one.
I thought everybody pretty much had seen this, but yeah, we've had this for like I said, we've had this for years.
Correct. Yep. And if you look very, very carefully under a good monitor, you can actually see the address and the age. We worked it out.
You can.
Kim.
Yeah.
It's Kim Jagat.
Yeah.
Right. So it'd be interesting to talk to her, and she's quite welcome to come on. Be very interesting conversation. Anyway, let's get back to the podcast.
Okay.
We'll see if we can do a couple of more slides because I don't want to rush it because the discussion has been incredible and we haven't even discussed the Sakiki note yet. So if we have a look at the next picture, right? Even though on the Avery salvage yard, they had the proper means to dispose of a body, right? A dismembered body, you wouldn't have found nothing, right? Especially in a smelter, that aluminium smelter under high heat, constant heat, and you melt the body with aluminium, forget it. Right, Jack 61, you're not going to find nothing, right? All you're going to see is a molten metal at the bottom in an ingot. You got nothing.
Right. Nothing.
You got absolutely nothing. Direct heat, enclosed, beautiful. No, what the state focused on and only focused on is Stephen Avery's burn pit, right? Now, we've talked about the burn pit. The problem with the burn pit, there are lots of problems with the burn pit. One, it's small. Two, it's open to the elements. You compare that to the smelter. It's the complete opposite to the smelter in terms of designing to incinerate or cremate somebody. It's totally wrong. It's good for burning rubbish, but not a human body. Plus, you need an incredible amount of fuel in order to convert a human being to those small size bone fragments. Right? Jack 61.
Oh, absolutely agree. Everything you said.
Yep. So this is where the state put their focus, but they were caught out because this photograph was taken by Trooper Reese on November the 6th. The 6th. This is one day before Cuss Road, one day before Kim Ji-kat calls her handler. And there are no bones that you can see anywhere around the grass or in the middle of the burned pit. There's nothing there. Right, Jack 61?
Yeah, that's right. And notice, take clear notice, everyone. Look in the background. Look around that little burn area. There was no evidence tape either. Nothing.
No tape. So this is an actual fact, an in situ picture of the burn pit, untouched, right? Not because nobody in their mind thought, jeepers, that burn pit looks pretty nefarious. Now you can see Bear, he's got his tail down. He's not aggressive. He's not yelping. He's not moving up and down. And we've even got a video of him. No one smelled anything nefarious. No one noted anything nefarious. The burn pit was nothing. The burn pit was like the aluminium smelter and the incinerator, the wood incinerator. Nothing happened there. But Jack 61, Alice. Alice, do you have a comment?
That's just it though, Doc. I mean, these are supposed to be seasoned officers.
Yes.
You know what I mean? They are supposed to be in the positions that they're in for 15, 20 years. And as you say, this boy got taken on the 5th. Now, surely they've been to crime scenes where it's been somebody has been burnt, car accident, or something like that. You know what I mean? So for that photo to be taken on the 6th, it would have still smelled of something being burnt, a human body being burnt. The smell would have lingered. It would have travelled. They probably wouldn't have had to have been up as close as that to that burn pit to smell human remains have been burnt there. You know? So
it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Every single one of them need to hand in their fucking badges. Because, as you say, this photo got taken on the 5th.
6th, on the 6th.
And then on, what was it, the 9th? They found fucking human remains in the burn pit, in the fire pit. And then not only that, they bring in a fucking digger. Without taking in situ photos and everything like that. They bring in a digger to just fucking mantle anything else that was there. And even somebody who came, I can't even remember who it was. It was an investigator or somebody like that who said that they weren't taking pictures because the thing had been tampered with in the first place.
Oh, that was Erdl.
Erdl.
Yeah.
Erdl.
Yeah.
Correct.
You guys, we just have to once again and always pay special thanks to Laura and Moira for dedicating 10 years of their life for their project, and for Netflix for picking up this case and for airing it, because none of this would have ever happened. I mean, Stephen, what are his chances and Brandon's, to get out? Slim, right?
Correct.
But without this, it would be none.
Impossible.
None.
Impossible. Neverly, Jack 61, are you able to change the photograph? Because apparently Maz's dog is barking at the picture. And it's 1:30 in the morning. It's 1:30 in the morning. So the reason why the investigators are so interested in that burn pit is that, according to the investigators, they came to the burn pit, they sifted the burn pit, and they found all of those human remains from that burn pit. But there's one problem. There are no in situ photographs at all, right? So we are to believe that those cremains were sifted from that burn pit, despite the fact that there are no in situ photographs at all, right? So despite the fact that Stephen on the property, on the salvage yard, had a perfect smelter to get rid of a body, and also had a wood furnace, which definitely would have burnt up a human body. Because remember, the both structures were enclosed, right? Which means the heat is direct, and the direct heat on a body is going to break it down. They chose to believe that Teresa Halbach was burnt in that burn pit, right? Because that's allegedly where they found those human remains. So, Jack 61, can we have the next slide, please? Now, remember the Sakiki note, right? Now, we all thought, hey, now, wait a minute, the Sakiki note, that's got to be important, right? Because it names the sheriff, it names Avery, and it says that a body was burnt in a smelter, right? So have a look. This is in the trial. This is Stephen Avery's trial. This is Buting talking to Fassbender. Now, Alice, would you like to read the questions? It starts off, you see where it's in blue, that's a question. And the Jack 61, would you like to read out the answers?
Sure, I'll be Fassbender.
Yep. So,
put your eyebrows on.
So, would you like to start reading? So, this is the Sakiki note in the trial, Alice.
At the Green Bay post office, they said body was burnt up in aluminium smelter, 3 a.m. Friday morning, right?
I'm aware of that letter, the exact verbiage. I'm not sure, but something to that effect, yes.
All right. And it was contained in an envelope from the Green Bay Police Department that had a big sticker on it, fluorescent green, that said, check for latents, right?
I believe so, yes.
Now, that letter sat in the property department of Calumet Sheriff's Department until I discovered it. Just this past November. Isn't that right?
What, until you discovered it?
Until I pointed it out to you.
Well, yeah, that's where it was, yes.
You and Mr. Investigator Liger were present when I found this particular letter in the property inventory, right?
Yes.
And was only then that it was sent to the crime lab to be analysed for any sort of prints or anything, right?
Oh my God. But now here we are. This is just sort of orient everyone. He's talking about November 2006 because they wasn't on the case until afterwards. And this right here is probably happening, I'm guessing, somewhere around February 14th or 15th at trial, somewhere in that neighborhood, 2007. Oh my God. I forgot all about this.
You want to read your response?
Sure.
I believe so. Do you want to read your response? I believe so, yes.
I believe so. I believe so, yes. That's Mr. Fassbender. Oh my God. I forgot all about this. That's crazy.
Right.
No.
Guys, it was Buting that wanted the fingerprints done, not the investigator.
Oh my God.
Well, we've always said there, what they don't know, can't, if they don't know about it, they it's like not asking a question you don't want to know the answer to, right?
I mean, but it's fucking infuriating. It is infuriating. That should have been one of the first fucking things that got taken.
First things.
Yeah.
First things. So basically, their way of handling the letter is to do an ostrich, bury their head in the sand.
Bury it. That's right.
They were not interested in the Sakiki note or who wrote it. And it was Buting that said, don't you think you should check it for fingerprints? Oh, yeah, we better. So they left the letter in the evidence lock or wherever, and it was Buting that discovered the Sakiki note.
Oh my God.
Right?
You know,
The state.
I'm sorry, Doc. Just a question. I'm sure they sent that to Riddle. I'm guessing at the DCI, the crime lab. I mean,
yes.
Did they find latents on it, or do you remember?
Nothing. Do you want to continue in the next page?
Yep.
Page 20. Now listen to this, Alice. You want to go?
Yeah. Is that because the body being burnt in the smelter didn't fit your theory that Mr. Avery was guilty of this crime?
Answer. I felt it didn't fit the facts and the evidence. That smelter was examined by arson investigators, and they determined that it didn't appear to have been used for a while. So therefore, it didn't fit. Nothing had been burned up, so they just didn't bother sending it off for fingerprints.
Yep.
Exactly. Exactly. Just because they didn't find anything in the smelter doesn't say that there was nothing on that fucking letter.
That's right.
Now, how about if they'd used the smelter on the 31st and then turned it off and it cooled down? But according to it didn't fit their theory, so they didn't even bother.
That's right. Wow.
because the plant put the bones in the burn pit, not in the smelter.
Guys, award-winning investigation. Award-winning blue ribbon.
Oh, and they got bonuses, promotions, accolades, and everything else. Plus, we saw it in the picture when they took out the ashes from the incinerator. What the fuck do you think you're gonna find? An arm in there?
Correct.
You know, you're not gonna find anything. If it's burnt, it's to ashes, to smithereens.
Oh, I bet that incinerator gets hot as hell. I mean, I don't, because not everyone would be aware, but that incinerator, that builds a fire, which heats a boiler, and that sends out steam to radiator heat, and that's kind of an old way of doing things. There's still a lot of radiators around. People got a lot of radiator heat, but those things get hot as hell.
But you have to admit, if you've got temperatures hot enough to melt aluminium, it's hot. You're in trouble.
That too. Absolutely.
Okay, Alice, would you like to continue?
Did you suggest any DNA or the anthropologist examine it to see if there were any bone fragments?
The particular arson investigator that examined that is one of the one that found most of the bone fragments in the burn area. Way to not answer the question.
Exactly.
So
it has nothing to do with the question.
Yeah, all right. I'll shut up.
And if that smelter had been used to burn the body, though that would really tend to indicate that Mr. Avery wasn't guilty of this crime, because it would not make sense to burn the body in the smelter, to take the bones and place them on your own backyard, would it?
Can I do Mr. Kratz?
Please.
No, I don't recall. Would you like to do Mr. Kratz? I think we might have lost. No, I don't recall. Would you like to do Mr. Kratz?
Sure. Objection, speculation. Judge, we're not getting into what makes sense about what Mr. Avery did, are we?
Gee.
Oh, my God.
I'll sustain the objection.
Yeah, oh my God. Oh.
And Buting goes, all right, I'll move.
I'll move on, yeah.
Now, you have to admit, that's one of the most bizarre passages you've ever seen in the trial, right?
Well, yeah, because there's no doubt that thing should have been sent. It should have been sent immediately for fingerprints.
Correct. So they did. I don't think in the end they found any fingerprints, but you're correct, Jack 61. The Sakiki note should have been checked immediately. Lord knows how long.
Reported and shared with the defense.
Correct. 100% correct. Well, look, guys, we've done quite a lot, and I don't want to rush it. Shall we just do one more page, and we'll continue next week, and we'll make it a short podcast because it's Christmas Eve.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Sounds
yeah,
good.
guys. So next Saturday is Christmas Eve day, but we agreed to do a short podcast. So if you can, please come over, but family comes first. We understand that.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. If we don't get anybody coming in chat, we understand because Santa's coming. But I don't want to rush this because we've covered so much. And yeah, so let's just do this one final page. Neville, are you happy to do that?
Sure. I'm sure that I know who's not going to get any Christmas presents from Santa because he was very, very naughty.
Me?
Andy, baby Andy.
Me.
Yeah. No, Andy Colburn.
Oh, Colburn and Andy B.
He's been very naughty. Yeah. Okay, here I go. Finally, a dozen years later, private investigator James Kirby traveled to Manitowoc to interview Lisa Novacek, payroll employee at Wisconsin Aluminum Foundry. She also worked at the foundry in 2005 and has familiarity with her company's employees. The business has been a mainstay in Manitowoc since the early 1900s. It's tucked inside an old industrial neighborhood, and it remains a vibrant blue-collar operation to this day. Quote, I showed Miss Novacek the Sikiki note, which was reportedly found during sorting at the Green Bay post office. Novacek told me that there were 20 people who worked the night shift at the aluminum foundry in the early November 2005, and that about half of them were illiterate or partially literate, and that the Sikiki note could have been written by one of them. Miss Novacek told them that Scott Tadich's nickname at work in 2005 was Skinny, and that Sikiki may be a reference to Scott Tadich. Oh my God.
Oh dear. Oh dear. Now, just before we discuss this, Wendy Baldwin also spoke with Lisa Novacek. And if you want to read this on CASO, page 687. So, on the one hand, they're saying, no, we don't care about the Sakiki note. But on the other hand, they were shit scared of it because they actually went to the aluminum foundry and spoke to several people at the aluminum foundry. Because guess what, guys? Who was a star witness for the state apart from Bobby Dassey? Who was it?
Scott Tadich.
Scott Tadich, right? And Jack 61, this will be the final picture. No, two pictures. This is a picture of Scott. And we'll just wait till Jack 61 puts it up. And Scott Tadich, as you guys know, is Brendan Dassey's stepfather, and he's married to Barb Tadich. We'll just wait for the next picture. So for those who don't know, this is Scott Tadich. And why is Scott important? For two things. Scott's important because he was able to give a reciprocal alibi to Bobby Dassey. Bobby Dassey also was a star witness for the state because he said that when he left to go bow hunting, he never saw Teresa Horbach anymore, but he saw her vehicle. And before he went in to have a shower or before he got dressed, he saw Teresa Horbach walking towards his uncle's trailer. Scott Tadich was able to alibi Bobby Dassey and tell the time when he saw Bobby Dassey on Highway 147. Jack 61.
Yeah, and I have to add in right, wrong, or indifference. I have to also comment, as I always do, the disparaging differences between the November 10th, 2005 and the November 29th, 2005 statements that Scott, no fire at all mentioned in the first statement, November 10, 2005. But the November 29, 2005, there was a discussion about fire, and this was with the DCI. I also find it really interesting that no one from Calumet or even Manitowoc, but especially Calumet, no one interviewed him early on. I found that very curious. They didn't interview him until the end of March 2006. And I have to wonder why. But anyway, I wanted to point that out.
Well, you know what else I wanted to point out, if I may, Dr. Silkman?
Of course.
The whole double alibi, the convenient one between Scott Tadich and Bobby Dassey, you know, how that was orchestrated. And when Bobby said you should ask Scott Tadich because he would know exactly the time, which is very, very suspicious as we know. What?
Don't mention it.
I did not. But guys, isn't it funny that, okay, if we want to really buy this whole alibi story between Scott and Bobby, but nobody ever talked about what happened after that encounter. Because who's to say that they did not, first of all, they went hunting. We don't know if they went hunting because they don't have an alibi for hunting.
There's no
right?
alibi for either
There's
of them.
no fucking alibi. Exactly. And we don't know if they went together, if they did go hunting. We don't know to which location they went separately and or together. We don't know anything. We just know that they crossed paths under suspicious circumstances.
Well, there's also something else we have to add to that, Neverly, is that Bobby's phone records seem to indicate that he wasn't where he said he was at 3 o'clock.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
There's a ping. There are pings on a tower that he shouldn't have been at. I'm just saying.
Right.
So it was just the inference and the illusion of an alibi.
Yes.
But that's an alibi just at that point. Even if we're going to say, okay, we'll give him that.
It's an alibi you can't corroborate.
Right. And I'm not saying he had anything to do with anything with Teresa. I'm just saying that the ping, if it's correct, it puts him in a different location than he said he was. That's all I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I'm agreeing with you exactly because we don't know where he went. They insinuated that he went into that direction, but it doesn't mean anything.
Correct.
If we're to believe them.
Yes.
So their time isn't accounted for, actually.
That's correct. That's 100% correct. Alice, do you have a comment? Thank you, Neville.
Yeah, Doc. But, I mean, we've got to remember as well that we all know Scott is quick-tempered. I mean, as TJ Anderson reminds us in chat, he'll put you in the ground, you know.
Right.
So, I mean, I'm not saying just because you've got a temper that makes you a murderer. It doesn't. But there is a lot of questions surrounding the whole Scott-Bobby scenario, you know, and like Neverly says, they haven't really got an alibi as such because they're just driving past. I mean, that's like the Luke Mitchell case with the Andrea Bryson, who was the star witness.
Yes.
Past the path, seeing a lassie and a guy standing arguing or talking at the front of the path, but when she finally got into court, she couldn't point Luke out in court, you know. So to me, her reference to that being Luke and Jodie is nonsense because she couldn't identify him in court, and the only difference that he had in court was his hair was maybe a bit different, but his face and that still looked the same. He wasn't the skinny wee runt he was when he first went in. He put on a bit of weight, but it just makes you think even more, you know. Passing like that, would you be looking at the clock to know the exact time and what time you had somebody?
It's
You know, it's just, there is too many questions round about that.
I mean, you think about it, right? Would Scott Tadich really have looked at his clock when he saw Bobby Dassey? Would you look at your clock? Is that what's on your mind? You went to see your mother in hospital because she had a back operation. You're now rushing off to going hunting. Do you give a toss that you saw Bobby Dassey and you checked the time?
No.
That's ridiculous.
It is, Doc. It really is. I mean, the most that you would do is you would recognise the car coming towards you or whatever. So you would honk, doot, doot, as notification, and then zoom. You're past each other.
But
What was it? Was it I say he went, doot, doot, hiya, Bobby, wait a minute till I check my clock. Oh, it's 3:30. You know what I mean? It's just, that bit does sound ridiculous. It really does. And as I say, I'm not saying that Scott was involved or anything like that, but that part of the so-called alibis just doesn't add up. It doesn't.
No, it's complete. As you used to say, Alice, it's bogus and bullshit. But my point is, I'll get to you in a sec, Jack 61. My point is, Kratz, Fallon, and Garn absolutely knew the importance of that time frame, right? Because the state is saying Teresa never left, nor her RAV4. Stephen's saying, I saw her leave, right? Which means, and we've worked it out, it means that if she left, Teresa Horbach, Scott Tadich, and Bobby Dassey were all in the same location at the same time. Kratz knew that, Fallon knew that, Garn knew that, the state knew that. So what do? You come up with a reciprocal alibi to say, I saw Scott, Scott saw me, 3 o'clock, see you later. We didn't see anybody else. Done. Right, Jack 61? So don't tell me that Kratz didn't know how serious that time point was. Jack 61.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I was going to add to what Alice and everybody's been talking about. This time frame was critical because that removes them from the property. But I do think it's I do think that statement that Bobby, he's basically saying, you need to talk to Scott, but he pointed it out about him knowing what time it was. This to me sound like an entire coached scenario that
Totally.
Yeah, right. That Kratz did. Yeah, that's what I wanted to add.
Yeah, because you have to admit, even during the trial, during Making a Murderer, Kratz's eyebrows went straight up. 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock, remember?
Yeah.
He's thinking, wait a minute, that's when Teresa apparently left at 3 o'clock. So there's no doubt that through coaching, he would have said, can you actually corroborate that you said you were where you were? Oh, yeah, I saw Scott. Oh, okay, we'll put it down as 3 o'clock. Correct? So they corroborate each other. They're off the hook, both of them. Right? So that's the way it worked out. All right, guys, can we have a look at the final picture for today's podcast? Now, we looked at Stephen Avery, the Avery Salvage Yard, their smelter. Now, their smelter was a handmade backyard job, right? Yeah, it would have got really hot. But guys, guess who worked at the aluminum foundry that uses professional ovens to heat up, to smelt metals like aluminium? Scott Tadich just happened to work at an aluminum foundry.
I can tell you, I just wanted. I'm sorry. I just wanted to add that. I mean, my dad worked for Alcoa Aluminum for 40 plus years. Now he didn't really work in the smelting plant too much, but he was there. But I did get to see him, off and on growing up. They use big pots, and when I say big pots, and there's different size ones, but But those things, I mean, it's molten aluminum, and it gets poured, depending on what they're making, into various molds and so forth. And I don't know what the temperature is, but I know that they're white, red hot. Sorry, Doc.
Have you got access to that picture that I sent you about the pot, the melting pot, the one that we used for our front cover?
I do.
Yeah,
I do,
like
and I'll put it up.
Basically.
Yeah.
You want to put that up?
Yeah, give me just 1 second. I'll find it here.
No worries. So
while he's doing that, can I just say something?
Yes.
Which is very interesting about Scott Tadich working there and the whole Sikiki letter, where they interviewed Miss Novacek, Lisa Novacek, who was the payroll employee. So she did payroll at the foundry where Scott Tadich worked. She said that half of the workers were illiterate. So we mentioned that already, or partially illiterate. And that the Sikiki note could have been written by one of the employees. And she was the one who said that Scott Tadich's nickname was Skinny. To me, this is a loaded interview or answers. Loaded. Because why would somebody who works for the company, actually your job is to provide protection of the company, you know what I mean? So there's no trouble, drama, or whatever. And here she is, she's volunteering this information. She's giving the end, like, you know what I mean?
She's not the only one, Neverly. She's not the only one.
Yeah,
and
I know.
What we're going to discuss in the next podcast will just blow smoke out of your head. So here, I'm not saying Scott did anything, but lo and behold, we have the Sikiki note that talks about burning a body in a smelter. Scott Tadich, who just happened to be an important star witness against Stephen Avery, just happened to work in an aluminum smelter at, Jack 61. So see that pot there? The picture that we got up? That's what we used in our thumbnail. Now, that's one of those melting pots where they melt aluminium and other metals and they pour it into ingots, right? Now, you can see that in Stephen Avery's smelter, that was small time. Right? It was a backyard job. These are professional smelters where they melt up a lot of aluminium and other metals, high scale. So you could imagine that these ovens that they use are extremely hot. You put body parts in one of them, you're not going to get anything out. Now,
there would be liquefied.
Oh, it's done. Yeah.
I say it. Where is the rest of Teresa Horbach's body? Just saying.
The whole trunk is missing.
Where is the rest of her body? Because we've only got about 40 or 50% of it. The rest is missing. Right? I'm not saying anything. But you cut up a body and put it into bags, it's easy to transport. That's exactly what Robert Hurst did, right, Neverly? He put it in plastic bags. There was even the guy, I think it was called Don't Fuck with Cats, in which he dismembered his neighbor and put him in suitcase and throw him in the bin. So they do it to transport a body much easier. You put body parts in there, you're not going to get anything back. Boom. So we'll leave it at there. Like I said, please, guys, I'm not insinuating Scott did anything, but oh my God, you got the Sikiki note, and Scott just happens to work at an aluminum foundry. All right, guys. Well, that was that was a crazy and incredible podcast, all because of one note, the Sikiki note. So, guys, let's go. I hope everybody in chat found it very informative. I certainly did. So let's go around the table and tell us how you're coming along and how things are happening. Alice, how about yourself?
Yeah, doing okay, Doc. It's bloody freezing here in the UK. We've got snow and we've had rain, so it's all turned into ice. So it's like a bloody ice rink where I stay. Yeah, yeah, and it's worse when I've got the dog, a bloody husky who pulls you everywhere. I'm the one that gets took for a walk half the bloody
Correct.
time. So you can imagine if I didn't have any ice grips, thank God for ice grips. Whoever invented those wonderful things, I praise you highly, because I would be on my bum at least 20 times by now. But yeah, other than that, all good, Doc. Nan's Life in chat was asking if any of us have been following a case in Wisconsin of a 10-year-old boy who shot his mum and is being charged as an adult at 10 years old, and he's got mental health issues.
Wow.
I haven't heard anything of it myself. I don't know if others have, but Jesus bloody Christ, and it doesn't surprise me that they're trying to charge him as an adult, which I don't think should be allowed, especially for a 10-year-old boy. You know, and for him to do something as
With
drastic,
mental issues. Yeah.
killing his
Yeah.
mum, you know, there's definitely some issues there. So rather than incarcerate him and charge him as an adult, why not put him in a young offenders? I mean, that's what happens here in the UK. If a child, I mean, we had a case here a good few years ago now, and it was 2-year-old boys who took a toddler from a shopping centre, and they took him
Yes, I
miles
remember that.
away from the shopping centre, and they took him down onto a railway line, and they stoned him to death.
Yep, I
And
remember that.
his name was Jamie Bulger, and
Soldier.
these were 2 10-year-old lads. I mean, those lads didn't get named in the papers. It was child X and child Y. They were 10 years old. They went to a juvenile detention centre, a young offenders it's called here, until they
Yes.
were 18. And then as soon as they turned 18, they got sent to an adult prison. And then they were held at Her Majesty's pleasure. And
Yeah.
I think when they got released, they got new identities. They got put somewhere else. Everything like that. And then one of them was out. I even think they were out less than a year, or it was maybe just over a year, and they reoffended. And ended up back in prison, you know.
Yes.
So obviously the rehabilitation on his part didn't work, you know. Other one, I think we still don't know where he is, don't know what name he uses. He's still under a pseudonym. But as far as I'm aware, he's stayed out of trouble. And I don't understand why people, especially prosecutors and that, try and charge a child as an adult. You know, it just boggles my mind. What are they going to do with them when they charge them with an adult? Because it's not like you can put a 10-year-old child in Rikers or somewhere like that. You know what I mean? So it's just madness. If this is actually going to go ahead and they're going to charge that Wayne as an adult, because he's a child. He's practically still a baby in a sense, you know what I mean?
Terrible. Absolutely terrible.
That's like
Thank you.
fourth grade.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Alice. I'm telling you, you can go insane by looking at these cases. You really can. And that's why me personally, I'm only looking at this and nothing else. It's so bad what's happening in society at the moment. It really is a shock. Thank you very much, Alice. Jack61, what about yourself?
Well, I think it's been a really a good episode because, think about what we just talked about literally, 15 minutes ago about the fingerprints. And so basically a fucking year went by after that thing was found until they fingerprinted it. What?
They weren't interested. They were not interested in it.
That's right. yeah, really interesting chapter in this book. I'm glad we got it at least partially presented. We'll finish it up, but yeah, things going on. Obviously, as you mentioned earlier, the Colburn v. Netflix and just hundreds of pages. Just we've covered in the last few months. It's been absolutely crazy. And I did make mention the other night when we were talking about having Cherie check these court docket. There is nothing scheduled as far as a hearing.
Okay.
Well, I'm not shocked, but I'm a little surprised that he hasn't wanted to get together with the lawyers, because a lot of documents have been filed. Maybe he wants to get through, because we haven't read them all. I mean, we skimmed a lot of them.
Sure.
So, it's going to take him even more time. So I'm guessing it's going to be sometime in January before we hit anything from Ludwig. And that's not only including what else they may file, which I wouldn't be surprised if they don't. So, we basically got that going on, and we're waiting for, obviously Judge Angie to give Kathleen permission to reply, which it took her 6 or 7 days to reply to the state about.
Yes.
So, and that's been a few weeks now since the state's reply. At least a couple of weeks, right? So I don't know. It shouldn't take her that long really to reply back, but whatever. We're waiting on that. So, as far as we're gonna have open mic tomorrow. As far as next week, it's Christmas Day. I'm gonna say no. People are gonna be having their deal with their family, and I understand it. I'm sure we'll have the same thing here. So that's kind of where we're at.
Thank you so much, Jack 61. Looking forward to it. Yeah, next week we'll probably only do a short podcast to finish off this chapter. But I think Neville and I, we might be thinking that the next podcast we do on Reading with the Crew is the phone call. Stephen's phone call from jail to his sister and Scott Taddy.
The cool, calm, and collected phone call.
Oh yeah, that was a really gentle call. I'm sorry.
We've got that. We've got a copy of that phone call.
Oh, absolutely! It's in the playlist.
We'll play it in its entirety at the end of the podcast.
Okay.
So it's all coming together rather nicely. Thank you so much, Jack 61. Next we have I Don't Recall. How things coming along?
Oh, pretty good. I just doing last minute Christmas stuff, so that's my focus right now. But I enjoyed the podcast. It was very illuminating, interesting.
Amazing.
Thank you.
From a piece of paper with a couple of words on it. But it's amazing. You're right. Thank you. I don't recall. It's amazing how we can now bring together a lot of material from everywhere. And today we showed pictures, we showed CASO documents, and we went to the actual court. I'd completely forgotten it, like Jack 61, about the court transcript. They never mentioned Sikiki. They never mentioned that word. It's called a letter. They totally avoided it, didn't want to talk about it. And then Kratz, he objected. Well, now what? We're guessing about what Stephen was thinking. And I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, are we talking about a murder investigation or what? So quite clearly, they were not interested. All right. And finally, we have Neville. And good job on the reading, Neville. Fantastic.
Thank you very much. Oh, what an interesting, thought-provoking, also aggravating chapter, because we're like deciphering codes over here, because we are not concluding anything, we're not claiming anything, we're just thinking out loud, basically, trying to connect the dots. But most of the time we can't connect the dots because, after years and years of research, we still don't know, we don't have all the information. But the dots that we do connect are just amazing. And I also said something in the chat like 2 hours ago that our supporters that come here, they're loyal and they're coming here every single week. They know this case inside out. they're recalling dates, people, events like nobody's business. So yay for
Right.
you. Yay for your round of applause for you guys. And it makes our job more fun, easier, and also we love just to talk about it because we all have to, to contribute to this unbelievable case. And I love how Kathleen Zeller calls it this stupid case. And here we are 6 years into it, right? Scratching our heads. Yeah.
Right.
But thank you,
But
Dr. Silkman, for doing the PowerPoint, and just you do a brilliant job. And
not at
yeah,
all.
thank you very
No,
much.
not at all. But the important thing is that, guys, you have to admit, we don't just spend 5 minutes. We don't go, oh, here's the Sakiki note. What do you think? What do you think? No, we went deep.
Yes.
We went pictures, diagrams, documents, official court transcripts, the whole lot. And so now you can go away. If you're in chat, you can do your own research. You can go in any rabbit hole that you want, because we don't know who wrote it, but somebody did. Maybe one or two people wrote it. And the question is, why did they write it? What was the intent? It couldn't have been just a bogus crackpot, because it was highly, highly specific. Body, burnt, smelter, signed Sakiki, right? So why is that a code for something, right? And Manitowoc Sheriff and Avery, jeepers. It's all there.
And then
right?
the employee of the foundry, aluminum foundry, confirms, like, yep, it could be one of our people.
Yeah.
Who wrote that? Yeah.
Unbelievable. All right, guys. Well, look, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure. And I'd like to wish, hopefully everyone will be watching the World Cup tomorrow, and may your favorite team win. Unless you're from Morocco, you're gone home. But at least you made the top 4, which is awesome. But guys, just quickly, please support Jeff Jones and his channel. Both myself, Jack61, Big Jeff, and Kelly, and also Jeff. We do a series of podcasts where we're looking at MAM 2 at the moment. And that's just been a blast and really, really great. Good lot of discussions. So please check out Jeff Jones' channel. Support him, and also Becca. Becca does an incredible amount of work regarding Brendan Dassey, and that's huge. Does my head in. I find this so hard to even approach it anymore. It's just a complete tragedy. But we always have to talk about Brendan. We don't forget about him. And please also check out our good friend Paul Capaldi. We're all waiting. We're waiting for something really big to happen in this case. And I'm sure that it will soon. Guys, thank you so much, everyone in chat. Thank you very much for your support. And we'll see you all next week. If you like what we've done, please subscribe and give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed the podcast. But we will see you all same time next week. It'll be only a short podcast. And Andy B, we really must go. Catch you all next week. Thank you so much, guys.
And special thanks and round of applause to our supermods, Catnip and Dark Side of the Moon. They're there dropping links, answering questions, alerting us for any issues or questions. So yeah, thank you, ladies. You make a huge difference in our world.
Just to answer Maz's question, we're on chapter 5 at the moment, but we've done like about 9 or 10 different chapters already. There's a lot of chapters in Ferak's book. And Neville and I will probably end up doing the whole book if you enjoy it. If you're enjoying reading with the crew, please let us know if you want to see something different. But there's a hell of a lot more in reading with the Wrecking Crew that we want to present. All important stuff. But again, guys, thank you so much for your support.
And this has been a Foul Play production.